How we doing, boys and girls? Good morning. Welcome in. Hormenta Kaikile for all the Finns out there. How are we all doing? Good morning. Shakes fist. Curse you on daylight saving, pushing stream back an hour. Hey, look, it's not my fault all of the clocks do funny shenanigans. For reference, a lot of people seem to have the opinion that I am Finnish. I live in Finland. I'm definitely not Finnish. But welcome in, boys and girls. Hope everybody had a good weekend. It's clear that the crafting order system or the work order system, whatever you wish to call it, is
glad to see me. Both, I hope.
Is quite divisive. It's quite divisive. Some people seem to like it. Some people, they look at it and they're like, this feels weird. Some people look at it and it makes them feel sick. It's quite obvious. We'll have a little bit of a look at the forums. We'll have a little bit of a look at the WoW Economy post that came out, as it's quite clear that it's going to be a difficult thing to test. And it's very clear that my flip-flop in stance on whether it's good or bad in the last few days on videos has caused some confusion. So we're gonna try and improve work orders today. That's my plan, at least. Haddock with the 20 months, my man. Thank you very much. Appreciate it greatly. Welcome in and good morning to you. Hope you're well. I like the concept of the work orders. I think my biggest gripe is that it's very inconvenient and clunky. Well, my hope, if I'm gonna huff on that hopium, my hope is simple. My hope is that this is their first proper working iteration, and hopefully there'll be enough time in the next few days and weeks for, version 2.0, 3.0, 4.0 to get it up to speed, because it's I mean, this was our concern, right? This was our concern from day one. Our concern was grounded in the fact that the game comes out in like 20 plus days now. It's not giving them much time to get what I feel is a pretty foundational system in place. And I wonder if it was almost deliberately left last, because they know that it's not in good shape, and they know that it's going to frustrate people, and it's going to be difficult to use if it goes live in its current iteration. Or maybe they just wanted to see what the general consensus was and see how much of a fire that they need to fight. Who knows? But I'm going to start very simply, very quickly, very easily this morning. I want to check some auctions on a few characters on retail, and then we'll jump into beta once we let a few people jump in. I think this is one where the more brains we can throw at this, the better a system we can hopefully put forward. Now, most of my videos, I'm humble enough to believe that most of my videos go 100% unnoticed by Blizzard in any way, shape, or form. Yet, I'm going to find it quite difficult to believe at this point that Blizzard haven't seen my video from the other day, simply because it got linked all over the forums. It was one of the most clicked on linked videos in the forums. Lots of people referencing to it. So if the devs do read the forums in any way, shape or form, the crafting order thread particularly, I find it very difficult to believe that they're not even, that they haven't seen the video. So we'll see how that works out. I would like to put forward some more constructive feedback though, in terms of how I think it could be improved. I did a lot to highlight some of the issues with it.
Let's make sweet profit
but,
together.
To be truthful, I didn't really do much to put forward any constructive ways that it could be improved, which is not in my character. I must be honest. I tend to like to, if I'm going to say something's wrong, I tend to like to say how something can also be fixed, and I don't think I've done that very well so far. But we will fix that. Annette with the Prime Gaming, thank you very much. Do appreciate it. Good morning to you. Welcome in. Hope you are well. Been playing on the beta this weekend, but properly testing how professions are going to work on retail is really difficult. It's very difficult. There's so many more layers to professions nowadays. It's very difficult to simulate how it's going to play out once the game goes live. But this is always the problem with anything that is strictly economy based. It's very difficult to test an economy. It's very difficult to simulate what an economy will do, because most economies are built upon the foundation of supply and demand. You can only falsify demand and falsify supply on a test realm, which could be very much the reason why they left the work order system, the crafting system, till last. They may have just left it till last because they know full well that they're not going to get any, solid data back from any forms of testing. The only real testing they're probably looking for is more sort of like small bits of feedback and a bit of bug testing. Because you just really can't test these things very well until it goes live. Being creative and being critical doesn't need to be solved by one guy. At least you're giving something, and for free. Blizzard has so much free feedback. They do. To be fair, compared to most games out there, Blizzard has done a very, very stellar job of providing people ways to, critique their content, for sure. You sounded a very large doomer alarm for a lot of people. We can only hope Blizz sees it ASAP. Well, that wasn't really my intention. My intention is not to, set the world on fire. My intention is just to draw attention to the fact that a system that we've been saying for a very small corner of the player base has been aware of this for a long time, that it is a crucial part of the game, and it's very odd how it's not been, showcased on the beta in any way, shape, or form. It was very odd to see that either they've had real troubles with getting a functioning version of it to work internally, or they chose to just leave it till, pre-patch has gone live and maybe people don't pay too much attention to it. It's clear from my perspective, actually, that a lot of the big content creators, the big streamers, they couldn't give a damn about the work order system. I've seen basically nobody talk about it. I think Mr. GM is holding back his opinions on it. He's probably going to look at it early this week. We'll see if Preach comes out with anything. Bellula's not really said anything about it. Kahani has put a video out. Kahani's put a video out yesterday, which was singing its praises, but I feel that's mainly on the premise that his content is very deliberately positive orientated. Has Towley done some testing of it on stream, I presume? I don't know if it's... Towley doesn't really have much of a presence on YouTube. He has a few videos here or there, but Soul's done a video on it. Yeah, Soul's been quite good at covering most things quite quickly. But it's surprising to me to see, just in comparison to anything else. There's 20 videos on the UI. There's 25 videos on dragon riding. Yet the work order system, most people have almost ignored it. Right, let's get these listed real quick. However, as much as the work order system's feedback's a bit negative, it's nowhere near the negativity that Covenants were received back when Shadowlands beta was around. Well, this is it. Yeah, this is true. The problem for me is that while I think that the crafting order system and the work order system generally is a linchpin, it's the thing that's going to tie a lot of the other things together. It's going to, the desire for people to go out there and level the reputations, the major factions, to grind those renown now. The desire for people to level up the professions with the completely revamped crafting system. The alternative way of actually gearing your characters up now. All of these features that are coming in Dragonflight tie together because of the crafting order system. If the crafting order system doesn't work, or isn't well received, or isn't well implemented, it has a knock-on effect to lots of the other good stuff that is coming in Dragonflight. But the flip side of that is people will still survive without it. It's not like Covenants where it could just straight up, it almost broke the beginning of Shadowlands completely. The fact that they couldn't balance anything, they had conduit points. You had the flipping conduit power, you had all of this silly stuff going on, and it nearly broke the game at the beginning of Shadowlands. It was very, very detrimental to the game overall because it was in a mess. Crafting order system, though, if it goes live and it's a mess, annoyingly, it won't affect everybody that adversely, because gearing through Mythic Plus will still be a thing, gearing through raiding will still be a thing. They're still the primary ways for people to level up. The crafting system was always designed to be an alternative, but a backup, really, more than anything else. So this is probably why it's not going to be the end of the world, even if it goes completely live in the way that it's portrayed right now. Lots of us lot probably won't be best pleased because it's a big aspect of our game. But hey, we'll see what we can do. You seem to trigger a lot of players who feel that the order system keeps control of the auction house by keeping some players in check. It's that I feel is a bit of an illusion more than anything else. And Sean, thank you very much for the Prime Gaming. I do appreciate it. I think it's a bit of an illusion that the crafting order system will keep the auction house in check and keep the greedy goblins from being quite so greedy. Because just like World First Raiders do disgustingly degenerate things to gain an advantage, goblins are just as competitive. Why do you think these players were willing to sit online cancel scanning 18 hours a day, which is a remarkably degenerate thing to do? They were doing it because it gained them an advantage. Players will always go as far out of their way as they want to gain an advantage in a competitive game. The issue is that where the economy and where the auction house and where gold making has the slight problem is that one person's degeneracy can have an adverse effect on somebody else, which is probably why it's viewed more negatively throughout the community. If there's that one person cancel scanning 24 hours a day on your realm, it's adversely making it yet more difficult for you to sell your stuff, which instantly makes it far easier for somebody to turn around and go, I don't like what they're doing because it affects me. World First Raiders, killing the bosses first and getting the gear first and getting the achievements and the mounts first doesn't strictly have much of a knock-on effect to anybody else. So I do understand the concerns, but excuse me. Boosting stonks, maybe. Maybe crafters should reverse bid on a crafting order, meaning the first crafter that sees the order puts in his price, and if there's nobody else competing for the craft or to bring the price down, the buyer gets notified and either accepts or declines the price of the offer. But that would create other issues, especially on low pop realms. There's some assumptions that have been made by a fair few people, by the looks of things, that I got to be careful how I phrase this, but there's some assumptions that have been made that are just incorrect. The way World of Warcraft crafting works and the way the economy works is there is always, and it's nearly impossible for this to ever not be the case, there is always significantly greater amount of supply than there is demand. There is always more people able to craft and sell an item than there are people who want to consume that item. Whether it be a piece of gear, whether it be a potion, whether it be a flask, it doesn't matter. For the one fundamental reason that technically, soon as you have one person who is able to make something, there is no restriction to how many of those things that they can make. Meaning that soon as one person has the pattern, demand is for the most part met. The only other complications there, the only other variables, is whether that one person can get the materials they need to make those things, and that they're online to make those things, and the time it takes to get the materials and craft the item is not too great. But the reality is, as soon as you have one person that has access to a pattern, supply outstrips demand every single time, where crafting is concerned. Not strictly true on other things, but where crafting is concerned, there will always be a greater supply than there will be demand. When you have a crafting order system that's structured in a way where a lot of the information that you are supposed to obtain through the system is on the predication that there'll be a list of outstanding orders, that just doesn't work, and that's false, because there's never going to be a list of outstanding orders. The list of outstanding orders will be all of the orders that are either broken, bugged, or not worth anybody's time. They're three things that are not a good indication to anybody else coming along of things like market value or demand. It's just an upside down system that isn't going to work. It's a really hard concept to explain because you've got to understand the way that, supply and demand functions in the game to begin with. But hang on, let me turn the tunes down a bit. I feel I'm shouting over the music. It's this is why I said this is why it's very, very difficult to simulate an economy. And if you've not had a great amount of experience with it in the game previously, it's very easy to be misled by what's presented and come to simple assumptions that something is going to work in a certain way when the reality is it's probably going to work in a different way. I wished me for years that there was a work order system, but I had my mind on things like transmogs, etc. I've already come up with a few ideas to which I think would help improve the system. And they are more along the lines of allowing people to say, this is what I want, and this is how much I'll pay for it. Crafters, what do you think? That's kind of where I feel that the public work order systems should go more along those lines. It should literally be a forum for people to say, this is what I want, and this is how much I'll pay for it. As one of the biggest problems in Shadowlands was there was no way for people to say how much they were willing to pay for something, or to specify what it was they wanted. It was either in the auction house and they bought it, or they didn't. That was the only choice. The public order system needs to be far more... It's overly complex right now. The public order system's overly complex, and I think that's one of its biggest problems. The personal order system, this will start making a lot more sense when we jump onto beta, but the personal order system, I think, is fine to be complicated. Not complicated, complex. Both begin with C, but very different words. The public order system is probably very good to be complex because it allows extreme levels of customization of what you want to order. But the public crafting order system is more of a order form for you and a nice in-game interface to aid with the transaction of a crafted item. the agreement on price, the agreement on materials, the agreement on exactly what item level and what secondary stats, all of that is probably done previously between the two parties before the order is placed. The order is just the in-game UI to allow that transaction to happen. But you cannot have all of that complexity on a public order system where there is zero communication. If you're going to have a system with zero communication, it has to be simplistic and it has to have as fewer variables at play. This is what I want. This is how much I'll pay for it. That's about as far as you can go without any significant amount of communication. So I think one of the biggest reasons why the work order system has been negatively seen by a lot of players is because what we've been presented with works well if there's another system before it. If there's a system for communication, so crafters and buyers can, crack out, whip up a deal between themselves first and then use the system to put that deal into action, then it probably works fine. But the issue is for just a zero communication transaction,
I'm not going to give you $100.
it doesn't really work.
Beer money, yay.
Hey, why did that not come up on stream? Why did that not come up on stream? That should have come up on stream. Where's my Twitch dashboard? Why is it not playing game? Why did that not come up at all? Well, thank you very much for the beer money. I do greatly appreciate it. Thank you. It came up on stream? Oh, I heard the notification. Nothing came up on my end, which was odd. I must fix that, but thank you very much. Appreciate it. Oh, I can see it in my preview now. Okay. My alerts are busted. Technical issues. Like a blackboard or however you call it in English, well, there needs to be some sort of notice board. Either there needs to be some sort of communicative system that's put in place to allow crafters and buyers to, negotiate or come up with a deal prior to, inputting an order on an order form. You don't just send an order to a Ferrari garage without talking to a car salesman first, right? You talk to the car salesman first, you tell them what you want, you let them know how much you're looking to pay, they come back with an offer of what they're able to craft, and if you happen to meet in the middle, that's where a deal is done, right? Then you fill out your order form and your Ferrari turns up in the post. There's a couple of steps that are missing for the system to work fluidly, I reckon. And if you have, oh wow, that is a sale. Tunneling von Barter, 90k. Go on, definitely you didn't pay 90k for that thing. That's a sale and a half. Yoink. But yeah, I've come up with a few ideas, and what I really want to do today more than anything else is just maybe create some like mock-ups. Let's see how good my Photoshop skills are. Maybe we can create some mock-ups, put a few things together about what will aid and improve the system a little bit from what we've seen so far. But yeah, to go back to the point of like transmog and old mounts and all that sort of stuff, if you can have a system in place, the public order system,
Is that your wallet?
if you can make it so that it's simple enough for you to say, this is what I want and this is what I'll pay, it's then very, very easy to retrofit that to all of the past crafted stuff. If, I want this piece of transmog and I'll pay this much for it, the crafter can then either do it or not do it. In most cases, if the amount that they're willing to pay is more than it costs to make it, then, well, hey, presto, sure, no problem. I'll press the button for you. Everybody's a winner, right? But it's got to be simplistic. An anonymous gifter gifted a tier 1 sub. Thank you very much. Do appreciate it. Cast_G. Make sure you thank absolutely nobody. Because it's an anonymous gifter. But I do appreciate it. Thank you, thank you. Selling a bunch of pets, you know. Why are we selling so many pets? Nearly every realm I've sold something. It's like Christmas. Talking to people. Next we'll be going outside. Well, let's not go that far. Let's not go that far. For the new achieves. Is there a new one for pets? I thought there was a 500 mount achievement. I wasn't particularly... Well, is there a new pet one as well? There's another one, an Eye of Extermination. Only 6k on that realm, but, you know, 6k is 6k. There's 3 new pet ones? Is there really? Oh, well, that might be it then. Maybe it's time to empty my banks then. Get all of these pets up for sale. Maybe somebody creative is on the stream and you could call them via Discord. And they draw for you. You stream their point of view. And meanwhile, you discuss how it should look and discuss with... I mean, that sounds like I need to do some pre-planning. I can use Photoshop well enough to kind of to get by. Worst... Hey, Terra Jelly. Go on then. Worst case scenario, we'll revert to paint. If we have to dig out paint, we'll use paint. It'll be fine. It doesn't need to be pretty. It just needs to, you know, represent what we want. We're up to like 150, 200k worth of pet sales already. 1250 to 2k pets? Oh, really? Ah, yeah, I vaguely remember these. That may mean that there's achievements for obtaining a quantity of pets that doesn't even exist yet. I think there's only like 1,500 pets or something, even in the game. Maybe they're planning ahead with these. What are they then? It's probably pet battle collections. Collect 1,250 unique pets. Crystalline mini monster. Oh damn. Okay, I'm actually pretty close to that one. I didn't realize I had so many. 1217 out of 1250, and I presume then there's deeper ones than this even. Ah, shiny, shiny. I know there's the new mount one, 500 mounts, which I am not even remotely close to. Collections, mounts. I have 335 unique mounts currently. I'm not exactly what I'd consider a Photoshop artist, but, you know, I can make a thumbnail. That's about the limit of my Photoshop skills. Ah, nothing fancy over here, though. Just the basics.
Let's make sweet, sweet profit together.
Starbuck Viper with a tier 1. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Welcome in. Right, let's check through these ones. Considering I sell pets on multiple realms, I would have thought I had more pets than that, though. I guess a lot of the pets that I'm missing are not ones that can actually be caged and bought. I'm missing a lot by just, you know, capturing them out in the world. That's probably where I'm lacking. Oh, there we go. TSM's finished rebuilding. Turquoise bulbul worm and a frigid frostling. Okay. Sure. Nothing fancy that time. That's nothing there. Argent Dawn. We always sell something on Argent Dawn. Always sell something on Argent Dawn. RP Realms, love them some pets. I don't have much stock over here though. I'm running out of coffee though. It might be a double coffee day today. If we're going to get serious and we're going to put our thinking caps on to fix... sorry, I keep using the word fix. I keep using the word fix as if it's broken. It's not particularly Proto Tickles, okay. I was buying those at like 7k a piece. That's a win. I keep using the word fix for the crafting order system. It doesn't need fixing because it's not inherently broken. It's just not very user-friendly. We need to come up with ways to improve the system. Make some of the friction go away. An improvement I read is that there should just be a buy all required materials for this recipe for X amount of gold now button, plus items that aren't infused, so higher item levels should just be BOE. Yeah, this is one of the conclusions I came to. Lots of people commented on my videos over the last couple of days, and I've seen by looking in the forums and stuff, one of the biggest counter arguments is that you can't have mythic BOEs on the auction house. That's pay to win, mate. And these are comments that, for me at least, feel as if they come from people who also don't understand the rest of the crafting system. Because if you understood how primal infusions and how concentrated primal infusions worked and how they were acquired, you'd realise that that's a bit of a dumb statement. But it's not fair to call people out on the lack of knowledge in something that hasn't even been launched yet. So I do kind of understand the point, but it is equally frustrating to try and, to educate those people that even if you made everything bind on equip, it doesn't matter because the reagents needed to make the damn things have to come from mythic raiding in the first place. So if you're not dealing with mythic quality content, there's no way for you to get access to the thing. Now, I don't particularly want to get too deep into the fact that you could argue that for the most part, WoW's pay to win anyway, because you've been able to buy gold for the last 7 years. The second you can buy gold, you can pretty much inadvertently buy anything you want in this game, because there'll be somebody out there willing to boost you to that level of success for a certain quantity of gold. But like I said, that's another topic for another day. People are, and yeah, that's another topic for another day. I'm not going to get into that. Blizzard saying mythic gear can be crafted without mentioning the fact that mythic raid yeah, see, this is it, right? People pull headlines, right? People's education on something like this, if they don't have a lot of time or they're not heavily invested to it, people learn little snippets, and what they learn is from headlines. So they'll see a thumbnail, they'll see a YouTube thumbnail, and it will say crafted mythic gear. Now, what they don't do is then watch the video and then understand the process that goes into making mythic crafted gear. All they assume is that, oh, crafters all of a sudden can make mythic items. Well, then they have to be bind on pickup, because if they're BOE, they're going to end up flooding the auction house and we're going to have a legendary system again. Which the educated of us understand is not the case. If you are a mythic raider and you are raiding and you happen to also be a crafter, then there's the possibility for you to be crafting maybe slightly more mythic stuff than somebody else. But is that then not acceptable? Because you are still strictly, you're doing the content and you have the choice when you have the materials for the most part. Either you use them to make gear for yourself, or you use them to, share your expertise with somebody else, with guild mates, with friends, family, or any random Joe that's willing to spend enough gold. I don't know. An uncommon suggestion would be to remove the 5% auction house fee on the work orders. That's one tangible benefit for people to try and actually use the work order system. True. But that also then means that you need to have both options viable, which is what I've wanted from the day one. I've always thought that the work order system should be the alternative to the auction house. The auction house should still be the primary option because, you know, the theory being if it's not broken, don't fix it. And the auction house is not broken. It functions incredibly well. People can list things and people can buy things. That you know, its purpose is pretty solid. People's ability to use it effectively is a different story once again. But yeah, you kind of need a custom order system to be the alternative. And this will become apparent when we look at some of the changes that I would like to see. One of the big changes I would like to see is them easing up on the amount of bind on pickup stuff. They've been way too liberal with the bind on pickup crafted gear. Unnecessarily, I think, in many cases. The profession tools do not need to be bind on pickup. The profession tools don't need to be bind on pickup. They're already heavily limited by Artisan's Metal. They do not need to be bind on pickup. You've got silly things like epic gems are bind on pickup. Why? It's dumb. Make them bind on equip. It's an epic gem. It's a consumable. It's a commodity item. What you doing? The top tier potions, just because they use primal chaos, are bind on pickup. It's just dumb. We don't need that stuff. Get rid of it. Pets don't need to be bind on pickup. There's loads of little silly things that are bind on pickup that really, really do not need to be. And the more stuff that you can filter through the work order system, especially things that aren't customizable. If it's a weapon, if it's a piece of armor, it makes sense having a fully customizable order system that's optional. Allow people to get exactly the thing they want if it's not represented already in the auction house in some way. But you know, a totally zero level customized piece of gear being pushed through the work order system doesn't make any sense. How important will guilds be for the goblins in Dragonflight? What do you think about that? Guilds will be more beneficial. They will provide you with a steady flow of customers, that's for sure. But that doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to make a lot of gold off your guild members. Anybody with any experience with Shadowlands legendaries will know that actually most of your guild members often expect a discount or to have things crafted at cost. Guild members are often one of the worst customers to be dealing with because they have this inherent belief that they should get things at cost price because it's for the good of the guild, regardless of the fact that you've spent weeks, doing things in the game to put yourself in a position to be able to offer that service. When they haven't yet, expect that luxury still for free. Now, if it's a two-way thing, right? If they craft you things and you craft them things, then it's, that in itself is a deal. Hey, another Proto Tickles. I love selling these things. But yeah, I came across many goblins who were incredibly well kitted out with legendary crafting, who dealt with all of it. All of the legendary crafting, they dealt with it entirely on alts, even as going as far as having it on separate accounts. Zero ties between them and the guild, because they didn't want to publicly advertise that they had the ability to craft these things, because they would much rather sell them on the auction house for a profit. A homie discount, we'll see. That's often the argument. Yeah, another Shelly. I tell you what, Zereth Mortis mounts, man. The Zereth Mortis pets are popping off. People are clearly finishing their collections before Dragonflight. Clearly. I think having the highest level gear BOE would be bad for the gearing progression path and timing. It's good that people can work towards their best gear by collecting the needed reagents instead of just buying them with gold. So I like the current bind on pickup system for high level gear, but I agree that stuff like profession tools should be BOE. My cutoff on that is that regular normal like a regular end game piece of gear is fine to be BOE and fine to sit on the auction house. But if it requires a primal infusion, the second a primal infusion touches a piece of gear, or the second a concentrated primal infusion touches a piece of gear, then it should become bind on pickup and should only go through the work order system. Because they are strictly the barrier to entry. You have to be raiding at heroic level, you have to be raiding at mythic level to get access to those materials. And then for the like you said, the sense of progression, it makes sense that you have to be engaging in at least near that level of content to be able to get access to those items. But your regular, what is it, 382? That gear, if a crafter has the ability to make a bunch of those, not that they will, because they will be doing so at the expense of their own gearing, because while Chaos Crystals are farmable, but the Sparks of Ingenuity are probably not going to be. That regular normal gear, you could even throw missives at it. You could throw missives at them. You could throw embellishments on them. All of that makes sense. Keep that stuff BOE. Let people post that on the auction house. If anything, it will do a really good job of portraying the value of those items, right? If you have a normal mode piece of gear, normal mode piece of gear at quality 5, which, if memory serves me right, will be item level 392, I think. And then you'll have 2 item level steps for each piece of quality on that. That sort of stuff should be on the auction house, and that should be the stuff that determines the market value for those pieces of gear. That will mean that when somebody goes to put in a personal order and they go to have their piece recrafted up to heroic or up to mythic level, they understand the true value, that, you know, the sum total of the materials that goes into it to begin with. I think that is a more elegant solution than just everything being bind on pickup. There is a happy medium that can be had. Nothing. Why did I log on to this realm then? I'm nearly done with my pets. I've got like literally 5 more realms to check. So
Hello
5
there.
more realms and then we'll jump on the beta and we'll start hashing this out. I might need to go make another coffee though. It's definitely a double coffee day today. In my opinion, people should be able to buy a crafted item off the auction house and use their infusion on that item to increase it to mythic item level. Then work orders can be used if the stats/effect you want on your item are not on the auction house. It's bad for goblins, but good for customers. Yeah, for most cases, I don't care if it's bad for goblins, because goblins will do goblin things, right? There are 500 different ways to make gold in this game, if that's your prerogative and that's what you want to do. I don't really care if it's good or bad so much for goblins, but what I do want, more than anything else, the ideal solution for any goblin is to have a system that everybody wants to engage with. Look what happened with legendaries. Shadowlands legendaries were bananas crazy because everybody wanted one, which meant that regardless of how good or bad the system was, goblins were able to do goblin things. Now, luckily in that case for goblins, it was very easy for them to take advantage of the system because of the huge barrier to entry to even crafting the damn things in the first place. And the 0 restriction to just industrializing the entire thing across multiple realms in some cases. But the reality is that goblins will always find a way. Just like mythic raiders who are pushing, you know, those 1% raiders, how they somehow always seem to find ways to get the gear they want, regardless to what restrictions Blizzard put in place. Oh, we're going to take away master loot and we're going to give you this personal loot system. All right then, well, we'll just do massive amounts of splits and we'll just pay people stupid amounts of gold to transfer gear to us because they were lucky last week. People will find loopholes if they really want to, and goblins will do exactly the same. Did I just sell a Barnaby for 8k? That's daylight robbery. Damn. Throat infection, so no coffee for me, just tea with lemon and loads of it. Yeah, you want to look after your throat. Keep it safe. Tea with lemon. Bit of honey in there. Honey's really good. Honey's really, really good for soothing throats. I'm happy that crafted gear is going to be something that has longer lasting value, but I do agree that there's a lot going on here and it's confusing for people who aren't keeping up with it. And this is why I think there needs to be steps to the level of complexity, right? The first step on the ladder shouldn't be overly complex. The first step on the ladder should be very easy for people to put a foot on, and that first step is the public order system. That step of the ladder should be really easy. If you want to climb the ladder a little bit further, then things like personal order systems can be more complex and allow yet more customization. That I feel is a sensible approach to it. If the first rung of the ladder is like 6 foot off the ground, it's going to be very difficult for anybody to get on that ladder. It's an analogy that's a bit, exaggerated, but Blizzard has always had an all or nothing heavy hands with things. Hopefully they keep an eye on things and tweak and make everybody's lives easier. Well, the reason being, I think the heavy-handedness approach comes because they work far more to deadlines now than they ever used to. They used to be a company that was absolutely happy to delay something, delay something, delay something, delay something, delay something. It would not get released until it was ready. The first iterations of any system is often very heavy-handed. This is what we see for people who have tested alphas and betas previously. You'll start to see a pattern that Blizzard just dumps everything. You basically get the final product first. You get the absolute final product in its completion first. And then what they do is they take away little snippets of things to make it more simplistic to start with, so that they can then add those things back in at a later date until you end up the end of the expansion with the full system in place. They start with a very heavy-handed, boof, here's everything. And they then shave things off and they balance things out and they tune things. And so it's a nice, easy progression path through the expansion. This is why our first look at the spec trees were very broken. They felt very, very broken, the first looks at the spec trees, because you could massively exceed the amount of skill needed to craft something. That is what we will see in patch 10.3. But 10.2, 10.1, 10.0 can't be that ridiculous and over the top yet. That comes later down the line. We've already seen what 10.3 is going to look like from spec tree, for the specialization trees. It may not look exactly the same as what we initially saw, but the point is that was the silly, that was the ridiculous, that was the absolute everything. And it gets toned down and simplified for the earlier patches in an expansion. Old betas are just current retail. That's one way to look at it, I suppose. Right, okay. I think I'm done with retail. We sold a fair few pets there, you know. I didn't do any shopping, but searching for deals on pets takes a bit of time, so we'll do that another day. Let's jump over to the beta then and take a little bit of a poke about. I'm still aware that not everybody has access to beta, so I'm sure there's lots of people that are intrigued and have questions. I wonder how Blizzard will handle the specs in new expansions. I would like to hope that this crafting system is something that's here to stay. But this is also why I'm really keen for it to be a success. Because Blizzard are also not scared on just axing an entire system if it's not well received. Island expeditions, Torghast, Covenants. They'll axe it if it's not well received. They'll just delete it from existence. And I would really hope that they don't do that with the new crafting system, because the new crafting system, the way crafting works, the level ups, the inspiration, resourcefulness, multi-crafting, the procs, the profession gear, this is all wonderful. That's all really cool. Love all of that. The spec trees, love all of that. I love the customization. I love the specializations. All really good. I would love to see them copy paste that in expansions. Iterate on it, obviously, but I'd love to see that continue as a feature. This is why I'm really keen for the work order system and the crafting order system to be well received. Because if it's not well received, people won't bother with the new crafting stuff. If people don't bother with the new crafting stuff, it'll get axed. Because it's all about engagement. I usually get the beta a week or two before launch, so it should be coming right up. They do tend to just like flood beta invites out at this sort of time usually. The BOE leveling gear having different tiers is so useless. Having 50 out of 100 skill means you can pretty much always craft something at quality 5. Yeah, I've thought that I think they've been a little bit too generous with the difficulty on that early leveling stuff. There isn't much of a leveling curve. Within 10 minutes, you go from being able to make a quality 1 to being able to make a quality 5 without too much difficulty. But hey, we'll see. Honestly, wouldn't surprise me if they disable the work order system for launch and refine it for a few weeks more. The issue with all of that is that it's an integral part of the system. The pacing of work orders is going to be such that it needs to follow the skill of the crafters, right? So crafters will obviously have to work for a few days to get the knowledge points to even unlock their first recipe or two. Once they start unlocking these endgame recipes, their ability to craft them at any reasonable quality is just going to be terrible, right? You'll be making quality 1, quality 2 pieces of gear. It will, probably, I suspect every week that passes, crafters will have the ability to gain enough expertise, enough skill in their profession to push that quality rank up by 1. If Blizzard have got the pacing right, it should mean that by the time the raid comes out after 2 weeks, most people who are putting any amount of effort into crafting should be able to start making quality 2 and quality 3 bits of kit pretty quickly. Quality 2, quality 3 is about where I'd expect people to be able to get to when the raid launches. 2 weeks further down the line, you should start seeing crafters having the ability to get quality 4, and maybe at that sort of point, a couple of weeks in, we'll start to see crafters being able to achieve quality 5. But quality 5 plus a heroic item level bump or plus a mythic item level bump is going to drop that quality back down again. If you instantly want to push your item into mythic quality, that's going to be at the detriment of it. If you want to push it into mythic item levels, that's going to be at the detriment of quality. Your item level will go up, your quality will go down. And then once you've got the item level, then you can build its quality and its item level back up again. Which means that if you just chop out the work order system completely for the first few weeks, your issue there becomes is that, well, you've basically just nullified the entire system in one go. The system doesn't work properly without work orders. So they really do need to get it right from the word go. And once again, this has been a bit of my concern, that it has to be right straight away. I think what I'm going to do, let me park myself at the work order vendor, and then I'm going to go grab myself another coffee, and then we'll dive through this in a bit of detail. What's the difference between the realms in the beta? The Valdrakken realm is the level 70 instance content realm. Valdrakken is where you can play with the professions to their utmost. There's cheat vendors that have all of the materials. The Valdrakken realm is also the one where they test the raids, they test Mythic Plus, they test, you know, the instance content. You cannot leave Stormwind or Orgrimmar on the Valdrakken server. The other two are basically leveling servers, so you can import your characters from live. You start at level 60, you can make new pre-made characters at level 60, but it's designed for you to test the leveling more than anything else. Is the system still alive? The system is still alive, which is good. Cancelled, expired. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Okay. Right. Let me go grab a coffee. I'll be back in 2 minutes. You guys occupy yourselves for a couple, and then we'll try and figure out some ways to make the system better. Some improvements. I'll be back in 2, boys and girls.
Let's make sweet, sweet profit together.
Alrighty, coffee is on the cook. I'll go grab it in a couple of minutes. Hey, use this Magnagust 123. Thank you very much for the prime. Appreciate it. Welcome in. So,
Hello there.
So, how do we fix this then? I've made some notes. I made some notes last night. I did some thinking with this. I guess the sensible thing for me to do is to put forward to you guys what I think might work.
Is that your
And
wallet?
then we can brainstorm
You're just
stuff,
glad
right?
to see me.
Hey, Gold
Both, I hope.
9871. Thank you very much for the prime as well. Thank you, boys and girls. Appreciate the support. Another thing, couldn't level professions on Valdrakken, and on Tierhold I don't have materials to unlock recipes to test. A few people have told me that the tailoring and inscription can't be leveled easily on Valdrakken because apparently it keeps telling you need a workbench and that the super bench doesn't work or something. I think there's the latest build has done some funny business there. Right, where's my notes then? Here we go. This is going to give you guys a bit of a sneak peek to today's video. This is what my thoughts were on the crafting orders. I've broke it down to like public orders. Very strong emphasis on the public orders, and I think private orders should be dealt with differently. Public orders is, as I described earlier, it's like the first step on the ladder, right? And because it's the first step on the ladder, I think they're just too complex. They're just way over complicated. You need to... My thought process on this is that you need to just be able to do two things. You need to tell somebody or tell crafters what it is you want. And you need to tell crafters how much you're willing to pay for that thing that you want. But I don't think at this point you should really be able to do too much customizing. Customizing can come with recrafting. Or if you want to get that custom order in first, you look at doing it through a personal order. But public orders, I think, should be a very simplistic first step on the ladder. So let's say I used the example in my video of, I think, the gun, the sophisticated problem solver. Ironic name. We're going to solve some problems. I think this is too much. Too much. Way too much. Too many buttons, too many options for a public crafting order. I think if you're going to put it out there, publicly, all it should be is that I want one of these and I am willing to pay this much for it. These, make them disappear. These don't need to be here. Ignore this. This is the crafter's duty. This is the crafter's job. Get rid of this. I don't think you should. Now, some of you out there will realize that this is a different approach to what I was talking about previously before we saw this. I went by the theory that crafters should provide, you put in an order for the purpose of simplicity, you should provide everything. But that has its own problems. The more sensible thing here is just these 4 materials, any, bonus materials, get rid of them, make them gone, delete them, get them out of there. You don't need to see them. These bind on pickup ones should be the barrier to entry for somebody to say, I want this item. It's the qualifying materials to say, I want this item. And that should go through with the work order. All of this, get rid of it. No need for any of this business. No need for any of this business. I want one of these. Here's my spark of ingenuity. Here's my primal chaos. That qualifies me as somebody that has done at least enough in the game to get my hands on one of these bits of gear. And then this is how much I'm willing to pay for it. Everything else, get rid of it. Doesn't need to be there. This is an overly complicated system for the first step. That would be my first initial suggestion. What that allows is, like I said, removing the reagents would make it even more difficult to guess the correct commission, though. This is where this little button comes into play, though. Similar orders. This will be the indication to how much you need to offer. When you only have one variable, and the one variable is how much you are willing to pay for it, let currency do its job, right? Any orders in this list are going to be outstanding orders that have not yet been filled, giving anybody a really good indication that actually these people have put in an order for one of these and it's not been filmed yet. What's the reason why it's not been filmed yet? Well, either there's somebody that's not able to craft it, or the commission was dog shit. That's all. That the only two possible options. Either there's nobody to make it, or your commission wasn't high enough. So when you get rid of all of these materials, it becomes quite simple. If you see a list of orders here, you know that if you really actually do want that item, you're likely to need to offer a higher commission than what's already out there. That will pretty much allow for a market price to showcase itself for any single item. So say you'll have 3 or 4 outstanding orders that haven't been filled. You've got one at 1,000, one at 2,000, one at 5,000, one at 10,000. Soon as they start being filled, because crafters will know how much this costs to make. Crafters will understand that making one of these 4 obsidian seared alloys, 1 reinforced machine chassis, 10 ever-burning blasting powder, and 2 arc-light capacitors, a crafter will know that. And it's a crafter's duty to understand the value and the cost of their materials. And if they do understand that, they'll then be able to look at the orders and be like, okay, well, the commission there covers the cost of me pressing this button and making this for that person. So the only the only orders that will then get filled are ones that are offering enough commission for it to be worthwhile a crafter's time. This is all strictly just for the public one. We'll talk about the private order one in a minute. But for the public one, I think having these extra materials, it's a variable that's not needed. The optional reagents are variables that are not needed. The public one should be simply for somebody to get the item. Having the item is your... When you have the item, then you can customize it at a later date. You can have it recrafted at a later date to increase its item level. You can have it recrafted to increase to increase its quality. You can have it recrafted to add on a missive to customize the secondary stats. You can recraft it to add an embellishment. The public order system should just be a simplistic way for somebody to get the item. You've got your spark of ingenuity, you've gone out and you've farmed some primal chaos, and you have to cover the cost of a crafter making it. Boom. Simple. Real straightforward. Doesn't require, and the big thing here is that it doesn't require any communication then. Zero communication needs to happen between the person that wants to buy it and the crafter. You got to make this first step on the ladder easy to deal with. And all of this is just adding complexity that isn't going to help anybody. Because this level of complexity only then goes to make this thing less effective, because there's too many variables here. You're still not going to look at this and understand what commission you should offer. Because, well, this person's offered those materials, and this person hasn't offered these materials, and that person offered some materials, and they gave this commission, and then somebody offered no materials, but offered this. Too much. This is too complex for the very first step on the ladder. You need to make that first step simplistic, quick, and easy. The quicker and the easier you can get somebody a piece of gear through the public order system, the greater the chances of them looking to recraft it at a later date, or them trying to then find that crafter in the future to make them another piece of gear. Why do microtransactions work? Microtransactions work because they get people comfortable with spending money so that they then buy the big microtransaction. That's no longer micro anymore. It has to be stepping stones, baby steps. Start with something really simple, really easy to engage with, and then allow people to use more complicated, more customizable options as and when they're ready to do so. You guys think about that. I'm going to grab my coffee. So what we have is now this, right? If we have, that fits sort of, that actually works quite well. So now we have public orders. To simplify public orders, the bind on pickup reagents are required. They should be the only thing that's required to place the order. No additional materials should be supplied, even if said person has those materials. No. Get it out of there. Don't by giving somebody the ability to add reagents, adds more variables and adds more complexity. We don't need that. We're trying to keep that out of there. The first step on the ladder needs to be simple. If players have those materials, sell them on the auction house. Somebody else will buy them. This fundamentally then makes it so that a buyer basically says, this is what I want. I want the item. This qualifies me to have that item. They then could, in theory, this is something I've not totally decided on, but they could then also specify a quality that they want the item at. And this is then how much I'll pay for it. I think this is about as complicated as it needs to get for the first step on the ladder. The very first, the public orders, where there's no communication happening whatsoever. All it's doing is getting people the items that they want in basic form, quickly and easily. This is what I want. This qualifies me to get it. This is how much I'll pay for it. If you do that, you'll have a flood of orders. People will get their gear nice and quickly. And more than anything, what this will then do is help promote the recraft system. Because at the moment, the recraft system doesn't seem to be worthwhile engaging with. Because if you have this level of customization from the word go, why would you need to recraft it, right? Why would you need to recraft it if you get it right first time? But as we know, getting it right first time is going to be very difficult with zero communication. So let's make public orders real simple, real straightforward. Does the order system mean I can craft the top level item and list it on the auction house? No. As it stands currently, every single item that comes through, well, every single end game piece of kit is bind on pickup. There is bind on equip items, but they're unlikely to be going through the work order system. They're likely to just be on the auction house in the first place. My wife plays WoW casually, and I've tried to tell her about the work order system, but she thinks it's just for crafters, so she pretends to listen to me. Guarantee she's going to log into Dragonflight, attempt to buy gear, and hate the order system, and just ask me why can I not buy it off the auction house like normal. Makes me sad. It's the public, the way I sort of envision the public order system is so that those people who would normally just go and buy something off the auction house, but maybe they go and look at what's on the auction house and they feel that what's on the auction house is too expensive for their liking, have the ability to say, this is what I want. I would kind of quite like it at this quality, please. I've not decided on that. The reason this is in brackets is because I do think there's greater merit to an extreme level of simplicity with this. Even specifying quality at this point, I think I don't think it's necessary. I think the public order system should be very, very, very simplistic. Super straightforward, and all it does is get people their items fast. The faster you get this into the hands of somebody, they're committed to this item then. Once they've got the item, they can get it recrafted, they can get secondary, if they care about having optimal secondary stats, they can get it recrafted with a missive. When they go out and they do their raiding and they get their primal infusion, or they get their concentrated primal infusion, then they can get this thing recrafted. I tend to feel it's a lot better if you get a basic version of the item in the hands of players quickly. Because once they've got it, then they can choose what they want to do with it from there on. But this level of customization to start with is too much. Too much. It's not too much if there's a good level of communication between the person placing the order and the crafter in the first place. But there isn't. So we need a simple option first. There's a problem if you just scratch the addendum of reagents from the order. Some buyers just have, let's say, 40% of the reagents and hope the order taker will add the other 60%, so the order may get a cheap price instead of having to pay 100% for everything. Well, if you have some of the materials, just sell them on the auction house. Then the gold you make from those is doing the same thing. Yeah, if people have the reagents already, the sensible thing for them to do is sell those reagents. The gold they generate from those reagents is what's making it cheaper. I don't think the added complexity of providing some materials is beneficial at this stage. It does make it more attractive to people in some way, shape, or form, but what's also not easy to then determine or to put value against is how much does that simplicity cause complication further down the road. And the further complication is that then people have no idea what commission they need to be offering. And the thing is that blissful ignorance will be a thing, right? If the bonus materials, if the random materials, the regular crafting reagents are removed from a public work order system, then when the game goes live, that's what people will see. Most people won't even know there was ever the option to provide them in the first place. Most people don't complain about what doesn't exist. Most people are have more of a concern if you give them something and then take it away. This is why I'm saying that it's better to take them away now, so that when you first give them to all the players, they're not there. Then it's an easier thing to add them maybe at a later date. But like I said, this is when we get onto the personal orders. That's when that becomes available. If you've already if we move then slightly on to what I think could be done for personal orders look like this. A personal order, personal orders. all or any of the materials can be supplied with a fee or commission, and this will probably be agreed upon beforehand on a personal order. So if you're putting in a personal order, you can specify the quality, you can attach all of this first, because the emphasis here is that you've already spoke to a crafter in some way, shape or form, and you've struck up a deal outside of this system. This just becomes the order form. My example earlier, you go to buy a Ferrari, right? You don't just send an order form to Ferrari to buy a Ferrari. No, you go into a Ferrari garage, you talk to a Ferrari salesperson, you tell them what you want, they tell you what they have to offer, they tell you how much that's going to cost, you negotiate on the price, and you make a deal. A personal order, that deal is probably already happened somewhere else already, at least in some part. And we'll talk about in a minute what needs to be a thing for that to happen. But this then just becomes the fully customizable order form for a piece of gear that you've already agreed upon externally. Or not externally out of the game, but out of this system. You've agreed on it somewhere else. There are some quality of life things that we'll talk about in a little bit as well with the personal orders, but the way the system is presented right now, I think works for personal orders, but I don't think it works for public orders. This is too complicated. There is too many moving parts in this for a public order system. This is okay. I can live with this. This is, in many cases, the more customization, the better on a personal order, because you obviously clearly know who the crafter is. You've probably spoke to them in some way, shape or form. If you're going to be sending them a personal order, you know what they can craft, you know what their skill is, you know what they're going to be able to do, and you've come up with a deal or a price or something. This is fine for personal orders. Don't forget that many casuals just don't want to deal with the auction house as a seller to compete with others. They prefer just buying and being done with it. They add reagents and hope to save gold here and be done with it. And can just ignore the layer of the auction house. That's what's Blizzard's intention. I do agree it's too complex, but I fear the complexity is considered part of the interaction and being able to ignore the auction house. They want this wall in separation. Well, that separation is made by the fact that the gears bind on pickup. There isn't another option. That doesn't mean the option that is then provided needs to be over complex.
Sweet profit
complexity
together.
is not gameplay. Complexity is not gameplay. Hey, Manthius, really appreciate all the YouTube videos you've been cranking out that they've brought me here. Oh, nice one, Ghost. Welcome in. Thank you, thank you. In my experience, many people love to provide some of the materials that they've collected. It's the I collected it, yeah, I farmed it so it's free mentality. Taking that away will meet a lot of resistance. For a public order, I don't think, and that's like why I said, if that's the case, if they have the I farmed it so it's free mentality, and they want to talk to a crafter beforehand, and they want to agree with a crafter that I'll provide these materials if you can provide the rest, and then, this is the number that we both agree on, no problems with that. No problems with that whatsoever. Absolutely no issues at all. But on a public system where there is zero communication, you have to have an element of simplicity. If the first thing that you'll present, imagine if the first thing you stepped into when it came to, this is why LFR exists, right? The public order system is the LFR of crafting. It needs to be simplistic, and it needs to provide basic results. And it needs to be a gateway for you to progress into something more sophisticated. Public orders should be at their absolute bare bones to get people the gear quickly and in a straightforward fashion. you want to add complexity to it, if you want to start providing some of the materials, if you want to start customizing the items from word go, if you want to start specifying the quality of the gear that you expect from this, if you've come up with a custom deal, bang in a personal order to somebody. But the public order, I really, very strongly feel it needs to be way more simplistic than what it presents currently. Have there been any iterations on the work orders since the other day? Not yet. Not yet. I would imagine that we'd start to see some in the upcoming days. I mean, there's not many days before the game goes live, so. It's what I take from my conversation with guild members as well, but I agree that many underestimate how much theory crafting might interfere with the purpose. I'm not trying to take away people's ability to customize and specialize. Like I said, that has its place, but that place is not the very first thing you come across. So the next thing I want to really sort of specify then, if we take the opinion that personal orders is where you can customize everything as much as you want, this is a really good system for somebody that wants to fully customize. Consider this very similar to the experience of bringing materials to craft and have a base Lego crafted for you. Somebody brings you some of the materials, you craft that item for them, you negotiate a price beforehand. The reason I make the link to the Shadowlands Legendaries is because many times, whilst sat at the auction house, cancel scanning and relisting my Legendaries, I would get a whisper. And that whisper would be something along the lines of, can you make me X, Y, or Z? If so, how much? Somebody whispered me to try and get that personal deal on a legendary. And, then communication has happened. I can, you provide the mats, 5k tip, or I'll provide all the mats, it will be this much. You strike up that deal. The question I then pose is, how did that person find me to know to whisper me in the first place? The way they found me was usually because I'd already got the legendary that they wanted listed on the auction house. And more importantly, they would probably see my character name many times next to many different legendaries. And so that was the notice board, right? That was my advertisement to say, hey, look, I'm a crafter that makes a bunch of legendaries. And people would see that and they'd whisper me directly. That leads me to believe then we need a system in Dragonflight for players to be able to find crafters. You have to have something in game for people to find one another. And trade chat won't do it. Trade chat's not a good enough system. A little box of 4 lines that just zooms past is not a sufficient system for that. It will still happen, but I don't think spamming trade chat is the solution. I tend to think that something such as like a notice board or a seller's marketplace, so that crafters can then advertise what they have to offer. This is very similar to a sell order, other than a true sell order would be something where a crafter could go, yes, I'll have that, please. A notice board system would allow you to have just, it could be a filtered system. You could either just search for the product that you want crafted, and it then shows a list of crafters that can make it. Next to that list of crafters, simple columns. It doesn't have to be anything fancy, but you have the crafter's name, you have the maximum quality that crafter is able to make it at, and the fee they charge to make it. There you go. There's your list. It doesn't need to be overly complicated. It doesn't need to have any sort of interaction with. It just needs to be somewhere that says, if you want this item at this quality, you need to talk to this person, and they're going to charge this much for doing it. Probably end up with spam. It's Blizzard's job. It's Blizzard's job to make sure that it doesn't end up with spam. You shouldn't do something just because somebody else will abuse it. That's up to Blizzard to make sure it doesn't happen. Some sort of notice board, a marketplace, whatever you want to do. I mean, you could even, like, Christ, you could even have just literally a physical notice board. I'm sure there's the in-game assets. I'm sure somebody in the art department could whip it up in 5 minutes, right? Just a big old notice board that you click on it, and then you have, you know, you could search for an item, or you have profession filters, and you can just search for a crafter, right? Okay, this is the person that can make that. You can maybe whisper them, maybe have a little online, offline notification next to their name so you can see who are the crafters that can make the item. Okay, this one's online, let me whisper them. Simple, right? It doesn't need to be overcomplicated, but there needs to be something. And trade chat is not that something, I feel. Got to be something better than just spamming trade chat, because 4 lines of text that just whizzing with all the other shit that's going on, no good. Got to have something better than that. It's 2022. Crafters can then offer up what they can make. I can make X, Y, and Z, and I'll do it for whatever the number is. They can quote their requirements, commissions, tips, or whatever for doing it. Heck, you could even have, this is where you could start integrating some sort of crafter.io, right? You could have, you know, maybe next to that crafter's name, you could have completed orders. How many orders has that person completed? Maybe rank them. I don't know. I don't know whether that's a good or a bad idea. I think it works quite well. You know, once again, it will showcase the more dedicated crafters on your server. Okay, this person has crafted a lot of shit. They must be pretty good at what they're doing. But you'll probably find that if you become top of the list because you've got 500 completed crafts already, and the next person's only got 200 completed crafts, you might be able to charge a little bit more. You might be able to charge, you know, an extra 1,000 gold to have something crafted. Why? Because you've proven to be reliable. That comes from this sort of system. There's got to be some way for crafters to advertise themselves. And that goes hand in hand with specializing, right? Because there's no point, absolutely no point whatsoever, going into trade chat and saying, hey, look, I'm a blacksmith. Because no blacksmith is the same. You'll have a blacksmith that's specialized in armor. You'll have a blacksmith that's specialized in weapons. You'll have a blacksmith that's specialized in profession tools. Just saying, hey, look, I'm a blacksmith is just dumb. It doesn't work. It's never going to work. You need something that allows crafters to say, look, I'm the specialist in this area. I can make this, and this is what I charge to make it. If you're happy with that, send me a personal order. Everybody's a winner, right? Real simple, real straightforward. Does your script for get realm data disappear after you run it? It depends which sheet you're using. If you're using the current Shadowlands one, it should work fine. If you're trying, yeah, it depends which sheet you're using. That's probably something that's best to ask in Discord. There'll be somebody in Discord that can answer that. Strove, you already started working on crafter.io. From what I believe, I don't think he's going to be making add-ons anymore. But I tend to think that those 3 things, the irony of all of this is that the current iteration that we see for placing an order for something, I don't think actually needs to be adjusted too much from what it currently is. This is not too bad for a public order. Sorry, a personal order. For a personal order, this is fine. I've admitted defeat that this is going to be a system. I've admitted defeat that work crafting orders are going to be a thing. I've admitted defeat that it's far too late in the development cycle for them to just delete it and just, you know, keep the auction house doing the auction house. They've invested far too much time in undoing the crafting order system now is not strictly feasible, I don't think. So we're going to have to work with what we have to work with. But I think personal orders, this works fine. But if you're doing public orders need to be more simple. They're far too complicated. They're far too complex currently. They need simplifying. Get rid of the requirement for any extra materials. Allow somebody to say, this is what I want. Here's my materials that qualify me to have that thing. And then this is how much I'll pay for it. And the more somebody's willing to pay for it, the greater the chance there is they'll get that thing. If they don't pay enough for it, crafters probably won't make it. Who knows? Some crafters might all the same because they're feeling generous, but then that's up to the crafter, right? It will get people the gear in a simple fashion, nice and quickly. People can then, they can recraft that bit of gear at a later date if needs be. I talk about recrafting a touch here. I've got some notes on recrafting. Recrafting, I think, is problematic in its current state because recrafting is also not necessary because you can customize it 100% to start with, but we've already determined that that customizing it heavily to begin with is detrimental to the recrafting system. Why do you need a recrafting system if you got the right thing the first time? You don't. What I also tend to think with recrafting is that it shouldn't cost anything more than just artisan's metal. Once again, an unnecessary level of complexity. You've already paid for the item. You've already had the item crafted using a certain amount of materials. There's no reason you should then need a random quantity of random materials to recraft the damn thing. Unnecessary. Get rid. I know it's a way to take more materials out of the game, but actually all it does by having these 3 things here, and this list will be more than 3 in many cases, having to supply additional materials to recraft something is a barrier to people using the system in the first place. So just get rid of them. Have it use Artisan's Metal. Artisan's Metal is a limited commodity item. It will restrict people from permanently recrafting all their gear 500 times a day. You shouldn't need anything more than Artisan's Metal. You could even, whether you supply it to have it recrafted or whether the crafter supplies it, can just be reflected in the commission. All other materials are unnecessary and only add to reduce players' desire to actually use the system. If no Artisan's Metal is required, people will loop recrafting without any limit. Yeah, I understand there needing to be something in place to prevent people from just recrafting. Especially since it's possible to gain skill points in your profession by recrafting. But anything other than Artisan's Metal is arbitrary. All it does is put an even bigger barrier to people even wanting to use the system. This will piss people off really easily because they'll be like, well, fuck off. I've already made the piece of gear. I already gave all of the material. I already used all of the materials. I paid for the thing to be made in the first place. Now I'm just having it recrafted. It should use the same materials it already did. Yeah, so I don't see any benefit to using this at, these bonus materials at all. Artisan's Metal, leave it at that. The buyer should need to provide all or any optional reagents, embellishments, and a tip for the crafter's expertise. So it's at this point where the person putting in the crafting order, if they want it recrafted because they want its item level increasing, they obviously need to provide the primal infusion. If they want it recrafted with different secondary stats, they need to provide the missive. The thing that you provide is determining what the reason for the recraft in the first place. If you're recrafting based on quality, then there's not actually anything you as a buyer can do to reflect that. You could argue that supplying higher quality materials will do that, but the reality is you're going to try and find a crafter who can recraft it to a certain quality. Don't mess around with all of this business. Just put a number here. Put a box that allows you to specify quality. There's no harm in having quality on recrafts, even on public ones, I don't feel. But all of this ties back into the fact that crafters, once again, need to be able to advertise what they can recraft stuff to. There needs to be some way for crafters to say, hey, look, I'm a blacksmith who specializes in two-handed weapons, and I can make two-handed weapons at quality 4, or I can make two-handed weapons at quality 5. You got to give crafters the ability to shout about this, to advertise in a organized fashion, not just spamming trade chat. And then, of course, they also need to then be able to say what they charge for the recraft. You know, 1k recrafts your mats. 1k recraft your metal. 5k recraft my metal. I don't know, whatever the case may be. Keep it simple. The KISS methodology, right? The KISS methodology. Keep it simple, stupid. Don't overly complicate things for the sake of overly complicating them. Added levels of complexity is not gameplay. It's not fun. It's just unnecessary. Things can still be very fun, very functional, without being overly complicated. I still don't see why public orders should not allow quality requirements. Why would anybody want to buy an item that they won't use, only to have to hunt down somebody else in the hope that they will make it usable for them? It's a stepping stone, right? It's a stepping stone that most people, if the system is made simple to use, if a regular order for a piece of gear, right? If a 380, because let's not forget, when you ding level 70, and by the time you've been able to get some of these materials, a 382, which is a quality 1 item, for the majority of players will still be a massive upgrade to what they're running about in. If you've just dinged 70, you might be lucky if you have a 327 bow or a weapon, right? You're not going to have super duper mega powerful gear instantly. So even getting one of these at quality, and this is, I think, what Blizzard's reason for not putting quality on this, is they think that just getting something is better in your hands is better than nothing. If you get a 382 quality 1 weapon that's a significant upgrade to you, it's a significant upgrade to you. Let's get these in the hands of people nice and quickly. Then when you go out and you do your Mythic Plus dungeons and you go and you work on the normal raid and you do X, Y, and Z, then instead of having to replace that piece of gear, you just get it recrafted. You've bought the piece of gear, it's done you well up until this point, but now it's starting to show its age. Now maybe I'll get this recrafted. Now I've spent enough time in the raid. I've got a primal infusion. Now I'll spend my primal infusion upgrading this to heroic level. Then it's going to push it to 395 at quality 1 even. Then you may also be able to, you may have, made that connection with a crafter. You may be able to put it through to a specific crafter through a personal order, talking to somebody that you've made that pre-arranged agreement with. That, okay, what quality can you make this at? Well, I can make this at quality 4. Oh, okay, you do it at quality 4 for me and I'll give you 10k. Boom. Done, right? Deal is done. Put through a public order. Public order to get the piece of gear quickly and easily. Personal orders later on down the line. Personal recrafts, I should say, later on down the line. Keep it simple. Keep it simple. Way overly complex currently, which is part of the biggest part of the problem, I think, is the level of complexity. Now, there is a few more quality of life things that I thought of. Quality of life changes. One thing is that the auction house in some way, shape or form needs to be integrated to the work order system. I think it's imperative that they make it easy, give people easy access to the auction house at the same time. If you're putting in that personal order to somebody, if you have made that, if you've had some form of communication with a crafter, or even if it's that the crafter has been able to advertise what they offer, you can then quite simply put through that order. And if you've agreed with the crafter beforehand that if you provide all of the materials, that they'll craft it for you and they'll charge a 5k tip, they need to also make it super simple for you to then get access to these materials. You need an auction house standing right here, right next door to it. Preferably, you should click on the item. There should be like a little put a coin symbol here, right? You press the coin and it opens up an interface just like the auction house, where it shows you the quantity, the items, and the prices. Literally just press a button, boom, auction house. You can buy the quantity of materials you need. You don't need to collect them from your mailbox. They go straight into the order. Do the same with the other items. You have to if you're going to let people supply materials, you have to make it easy for people to do it. Give people a little coin they press on, go straight to the auction house. They can buy the material. Even if they don't buy the materials, at least they can use it for quick and easy research, right? They can quickly and easily see, right, what is the value of 4 obsidian seared alloys? Are these things 5k a piece? Are these things 5 gold a piece? I don't know. Let me quickly and easily see what these things are valued at. And don't rely on Trade Skill Master. Like, Blizzard needs to not rely on people to have add-ons installed that give them tooltips. That's just really poor design if they go that route. They've got to make it easy from here. Either, a little gold coin so you can quickly go bring up the auction house and you can buy the materials you need. They go straight into the order. Simple as. Simple simples. If you don't have the materials, it needs to be made much easier to see what they cost, even if you choose not to buy them, is kind of the big point for me. Hey, Kitty, thank you very much for the resub, the tier 1, appreciate it. Thank you, welcome in. Hope you're well. I feel like the simplest solution to make the system usable at least, but I'm pessimistic that I'm never going to fall in love with work orders. Maybe I'm just a Debbie Downer though. I'm like I said, I'm still, generally speaking, not a fan of them. I'm not a fan of them because I tend to believe that the crafting order system is only half the solution. This is the buy order system. You need a sell order system to pair along with it so that it all, synergizes. It all works nicely. You need to let crafters say, this is what I can craft. And this is where I think my notice board is kind of a halfway house for this. It's the happy medium, right? It's not allowing crafters to say, this is what I'll make, this is what I'll charge, and giving a buy now button. It's just a way for crafters to say, hey, look at me, this is what I'm specialized in, this is what I'll offer. And then if people see that, they can put in, maybe they just click on the name on the notice board and it goes straight in here automatically. It's these little quality of life things that make the whole process more manageable. Because at the moment, it's convoluted and unintuitive. Honestly think the system will be liked by the majority of player base for the simple fact that buyers will be in charge of the price, and people see Shadowlands legendaries as goblins being too greedy. A sort of eat the rich mentality because of Shadowlands legendaries, regardless how easy the system is. There's an element of that. That will be people's first impressions. Their first impressions is that, oh, cool, I get to say how much I want for this. The downside of that is going to come a week, 2 weeks in, when people start putting orders in for bits of gear and those orders are not getting filled, and they have no idea why those orders are not getting filled, and it just builds one small little frustration on top of another frustration on top of another frustration on top of another frustration, until people are like, fuck this system, it's dumb. Which is what I feel would be the inevitability of this if they leave it the way it is. Pre-patch has broke Azeroth autopilot. I've not tested Zygor, but I would assume that Zygor are pretty hot on getting an update out. Then they'll start complaining on how they miss Shadowlands. I don't think anybody will. Like I said, the legendary system was a shit show. The legendaries was never and should never have been as powerful as it was. No way, shape, or form should it ever have been quite as powerful as it was. But hey, it's done now, right? That's game over on that one. If I complete work orders for the lowest commission just to get my weekly orders done, am I the problem? Not at all. That's entirely your prerogative. Just like in theory, I could have stood there in the middle of Stormwind or Orgrimmar giving away legendaries for free. I could have done it. I chose not to, though. If I did choose to do that, sure, it'd piss off other people, but it's at my expense. So, if you want to work for 0 gold, or you want to even, fill orders at a cost to you, that's entirely up to you. But the reality is people that take that approach filter out quite quickly. I think it'd be great if the work order interface would show if a recipe can be crafted by anybody on the server, or even display the number of crafters to avoid the orders not being filled frustration. Yeah, this is why I think there needs to be some sort of tracking. And as far as I can tell, this may be a thing. I've not checked this personally, but I think you can see the professions that your guild members have, I believe. I think there's an interface in game. It might even be live on retail already. That there's an interface that shows you who in your guild has what profession. So it's kind of halfway there. But I think there needs to be something that's more than just on a guild level. And I think it needs to be broken down more than that. I think it needs to be broken down to the fact that, can this crafter make this item? And more importantly than within a guild, there needs to be a public notice board for that information as well. It's been a thing for a while. It shows how long it's been since I've been in an active guild. I can see the situation where crafters will craft at a small loss for the first week just to skill up to 100, but I can't imagine it after that point. Yeah, exactly. The same thing happened with legendaries. People were paying people to bring them materials so that they could press the craft button and get 1 out of their 15 crafts to unlock the next recipe. That was a thing for a while, a good while. But eventually it filters out, because soon as there's no inherent gain for me, the only gain for me of crafting the item, when the only gain becomes the gold that I make from doing it, then why would I do it for free, sort of thing. The last thing, and I've left it to last simply because I know it's probably the most controversial, and it's the one that people have jumped down my throat for frequently on the recent videos I've done on YouTube. But I tend to feel that their use on bind on pickup, having every single craft, end game craft, be bind on pickup, is not good for the game. They need to be more sparingly used. Like that. My opinion is that all gear, right? Let me finish the sentence first. All gear should be bind on equip, unless it was crafted with a primal infusion or a concentrated primal infusion. Soon as you put a primal infusion or a concentrated primal infusion on it, make it bind on pickup, sure. That prevents there being heroic level crafted BOEs. That prevents there being mythic crafted BOEs on the auction house. Everything else, though, should be fine to be on the auction house. Your regular bits of gear, 382 all the way to, what would it be, 392 for quality 5. Let this basic stuff be in the auction house if you want. This stuff should be in the auction house, if only to provide a way for crafters to make the decision. Because we know that these materials are limited in quantity. No crafter can ever get an unlimited supply of these, at least not currently anyway. Meaning that there's a finite limit to the amount that that crafter can make anyway. Now that crafter is making the choice. If their progression path is to become rich and to become the best blacksmith, they don't need the gear. But the materials that they have still earned, the materials that they have still acquired, can still be put towards crafting something and selling it to somebody else. This would make it so that up to 392 BOEs would be a thing on the auction house. But there wouldn't be that many of them. And more importantly, because there wouldn't be that many of them, they'd be quite expensive. But it would still incentivize, it would then actually go as far as to incentivize people to go and, you know, maybe get one slightly cheaper through the public order system. They could either buy one themselves off the auction house, or they can come and use their materials and get one crafted remarkably cheaper. It actually would go as far as to promote the usage of the crafting order system by at least having the basic gear be on the auction house as well. This would go as far as to include all the normal raid gear, profession tools, and silly little things like epic gems that, in my opinion, have no place being bind on pickup. Why they're bind on pickup, I do not understand. Any info on Longboy 2.0? No. I don't think there will be. I don't think there ever will be. I think Blizzard still to this day regrets actually putting an auction house on the Longboy. I think they will use the model again for another mount. But I don't, because they will absolutely cash in on everybody's liking of the Longboy model. I don't think it will come with an auction house attached to it though. What's the difference between crafting the same gear with different quality? Is it the item level? Yes. A quality 1 piece of gear is 382 for like the raid gear, for example. 382, and it steps up by 2 item levels for every quality. So a quality 5 version of a sophisticated problem solver, a quality 5 would be 392, I think. But yeah, it's a very slight bump up in item level, which in turn obviously is more stats. And my desire for more stuff to be bind on equip and on the auction house does not mean that there'll be an unlimited flood of it. As let's not forget, they also require bind on pickup materials to make in the first place. A crafter gets to choose, right? Let the crafter choose. Do they use their spark of ingenuity on crafting a piece of gear for themselves? Do they choose to use that spark of ingenuity to make a BOE to maybe then sell it to make a bit of gold? Or do they use that spark of ingenuity so an alt can have a piece of gear, for example, say? You know, choice is desirable. It needs the name the Limp Boy instead of the Long Boy. That's not very nice. That's not fair. I don't think they'll make it BOE because people will complain it's pay to win because you can buy normal raid gear, sadly. The pay to win argument doesn't hold any ground. People who claim it's pay to win can jog on. They clearly don't know the rest of the system. I don't value the complaints of somebody that's ignorant to the way the systems work. Is truth be told, people will still complain. People will always complain. Whatever you do, people will always complain. You shouldn't build your game around avoiding people complaining about it. Then you just get something really dull and boring. What people should learn to do is filter out people who are complaining unnecessarily. But that, I think, in conclusion, is, at least from my opinion anyway, what I think that they could do to make this system, how crafting orders can be, let's change fixed to improved. Because it's not inherently broken, it just quite clearly needs some improvements though. Maybe add the treaties to the BOE list. Yeah, I don't see any reason why the treaties couldn't be crafted in Sols. They take artisan's metal to make in the first place. A scribe is not going to be able to print them in an unlimited quantity, but they should be able to use any artisan's metal that they wish to make them and sell them on the auction house. And they should also be able to, as an alternative, fill crafting orders for them, if people want to use their own artisan's metal to have one made. Sure, no problem. Like I said, it should be a choice. Most of the things, it should be a choice. I get it with raid gear. I get it with endgame armor. I get it with endgame weapons, because that's the endgame progression system. But commodities, utility items, your profession tools, say, that's not strictly an endgame power gaining progression system. They're, like I said, commodities. They're simple bits and pieces that have no need to be bind on pickup for the most part. Does most of that make sense to people though? I understand the one thing that is probably going to be the most contentious is my desire to basically strip public orders bare. But I think that this is the best approach to get people into the system. Get people the bit of gear, which, let's not forget, even a quality 1 piece of gear is going to be a significant upgrade to any character that just dings level 70. Significant upgrade. Means that what you are going to want to do is you're going to want to do your quests, you want to do a bit of farming, maybe through leveling you've done some dungeons and you've got a few primal chaos, you've got enough. You do your quest at level 70, you get your first spark of ingenuity. What you really want then is to be able to convert that into a piece of gear quickly and easily, without having to try and start finding specialist crafters and supplying materials and customizing all. No. Keep it simple, stupid. Make the very first step into the process a nice, easy one. Get people their piece of gear nice and quickly. If you get them a piece of gear really nice and quickly with almost no friction, then they are far more likely to A, do it again with another piece of gear next time they get a spark of ingenuity. They're also B, more likely to engage with a recrafting system that's going to be paired with this. It's a win-win for everybody involved, making the first step simplistic. I'm way too excited for the expansion. I've been playing with it for months now, and I'm still on the hype train, most definitely. I'd prefer to keep public work orders as complex as they are, but instead provide a good tutorial, including a mock-up order to NPCs that has to be completed before placing orders. Maybe. I mean, if they take on board a system like a notice board or a seller's marketplace, if this is in place and players can be educated that this is where you go first. If they educate people to go and find a crafter first, then I think that there's merit to having public orders be just as complex as they are now, but there does need to be something there for sure. Whatever you do, there needs to be something there for sure to build that, you know, connection between the crafters, the specialist crafters as well, may I add, and the people who want the bits of stuff made. Can treaties be ordered at all? What happens with multi-craft procs, which you get a lot from the knowledge traits? I'm not entirely sure in that regard. I don't think the secondary stats really play much of a part in orders. Inspiration doesn't really have much of a benefit. Yeah, the secondary stats don't really play a part with the crafting order system, unfortunately, but that's just an inherent problem of everything being bind on pickup. It would have more of a benefit if some of these items were bind on equip. You know, the treaties, if they were made bind on equip and you could sell them on the auction house, then you'd really care about multi-craft procs. You'd really care about inspiration if the basic pieces of raid gear were bind on equip. You'd really care about those new stats that they've added. Truth be told, though, in many situations now, it looks like most crafters probably won't care all that much about these new stats that have been added to crafting, because when dealing with orders, they practically don't apply. I don't think limiting it to personal orders is the solution. In both public and the personal orders, the default UI should be very basic. And then providing materials and customization should be an advanced fold out. True. I chose to, you know, split it into two. I chose to split it into like a zero communication system and then a, you know, a some communication system. You could smush them together in a way. That would probably also work. What's the source for the spark and when will people be able to get it? Sparks of Ingenuity, there is a couple of different ways you can get these, but so far what we've found is that they can drop from bosses in dungeons. Now, what we haven't determined is what difficulty level that dungeon needs to be before they start dropping. Same with Primal Chaos. Sparks of Ingenuity, though, for the most part, come from a quest line that you get at level 70 once you've completed the campaign. So people are going to need to ding 70 before they get access to this. So there's a level barrier to entry to begin with as well. But yeah, I do hope. I have my hopes. I'm still huffing the hopium pretty aggressively that this system can work. I know I've been one of the biggest, most outspoken people about just getting rid of it, because I'm going to be honest, I still don't particularly like it. Putting so much of the control in the hands of the buyer is completely the opposite to how any form of trading ever happens ever. But at this point in the development cycle, we have to deal with what we have, so be it. If it's going to be a thing, I would much rather devote time and effort to expressing how I think it could be improved upon. I do kind of agree that just scrapping it at this point isn't really a viable option, even though I would probably prefer to not see it full stop. But like I said, it was a system, for me personally, it was a system that sounds very good on paper. But the issue is when you start putting it into practice, you start to notice all of the nuances that make it just frustrating to use. And it's not a system that couldn't be absolutely perfect, but it's going to take a lot more than 4 weeks of development to make a system like this perfect, which I think is my personal issue with it. But Hopefully it'll be all right. Hopefully it'll work. Hopefully it will be fine. Should we have a little bit of a look at the WoW economy report for the week? We'll skip all of the bits that include me. We can just dive into some of the... Oh, there's the cheat sheet. Can you do as many work orders you want as a crafter, or is there a cap? There's a 30 per day, I think. 30 per day. They're public orders, though. The restriction is only in place for public orders. It's designed so that people just can't fill every single public order that comes through. I'm quite sure that number of 30 will get tweaked before the game goes live. I was quite surprised when I saw it was 30. I was expecting it to be much less than that for the public ones. Personal ones, you can do as many of them as you get. Right, where's the... You need to read comments this week? Oh, we'll see. We'll see. Where's it gone? Oh, I'm in beta version. I might need to switch it to the live version. Hang on. Sure, go away. Crafting work orders are here. Boom. Courtesy of our man Sam. Let's make this a little bit easier for you lot to be able to see. Can we go that big? Can we go slightly smaller so we don't get these stupid great big bumpers on the side? There we go. Right. Crafting work orders are here. I suppose I should be a sensible Steve and give you the link to this. So, most Sundays, in fact, I think nearly all Sundays, Samadan puts together this little report for us. This is going to be version or episode or number 251. I would always highly recommend you go say hi to Samadan. He seems to be finding some time to devote to content creation again, which is nice. I think he had a video come out the other day. I think we'll find that later on. So do make sure you go say hi. Crafting work orders. One of the pivotal systems we've seen is crafting orders. I'm going to gloss over most of this, mostly because it basically just talks about what I've been talking about for the last 3 days straight. There's a couple of links here to some of my recent videos on the crafting orders and showcases the interface. Have a little bit of a deeper dive into this if you choose, but I will gloss over this bit for now, since, you know, I think we've covered it in pretty much great levels of detail. While I agree with much of what has been said, I have a feeling that a crafting system, as it's implemented, is going to be more of a side quest for the casual player on both ends of the transaction. This is what I don't want to happen, right? I don't want all of this time and effort that Blizzard have put into this new crafting system to ultimately just end up being a side quest for somebody. Because the reality of that will be is that it will not then be justifiable for Blizzard to do it again. If they are going to create a decent system, if they're going to put time and effort into making crafting good, each expansion, it needs to be justifiable by having plenty of people engage with it, right? It was a bit of a test for Blizzard. Quite clearly, it was a bit of a test for Blizzard in Dragonflight. Let's, do a full profession revamp. Let's give them a completely new way of leveling professions. Let's add a whole bunch of profession gear. Let's add these spec trees. Let's do a bunch. Let's devote some time and effort to crafting and gathering in professions in general. And then let's see how it's received. And if it's received well, they'll do it again. If it's not, though, they'll go back to their old ways of crafting just being a side quest. which is the concern for me, which is why I'm so passionate about trying to put forward solutions to make it work well. Because I want people to use it, and I want it to be fun, and I want people to play with it. Because the more people that do, the better the chance is of them going and going, oh, wow, Jesus, you know, just like Mythic Plus. Mythic Plus was very well received, and so guess what? We've now had Mythic Plus every expansion. And so much so that it's practically one of the top 2 pillars of gameplay now. If Mythic Plus wasn't received very well, they'd have canned it. They'd have got rid of it in one go. They'd have tried something different, right? Work orders should be implemented as another way to get items, not being pushed to be the only way to get items. You said it multiple times that people want items ASAP. If only there was a way to achieve that with the auction house. Well, I've also, this is one of my big reasons that I think that they're pushing it almost too hard, the work order system, by making everything bind on pickup, by making it so that you have to engage with the work order system. That puts a lot of weight on the system being good. You can only force people to use a system if it's good. If you force people to use a system and it's not good, or it's even if it's only mediocre, the backlash of that will be that people will hate it. Torghast is really fun, right? Torghast in and of itself is actually quite fun. You go into an instanced version of the game, you get progressively more powerful the more you progress through it, to the point where you end up just doing some ludicrous things. Like the Twisting Corridors side of Torghast is probably the best version of it, because you can just snowball out of control, right? The reason why Torghast is hated by many, many players is because for the first couple of content patches, people were forced into that content on a weekly basis, whether they wanted to do it or not. If they wanted to be competitive in other areas of the game, they had to go do Torghast. That mandatory aspect of it screwed it from the word go. And Torghast inherently isn't a bad thing. It's not a bad, it's a fun little mini game. There's nothing inherently wrong with Torghast at a foundational level, but the fact that they made it mandatory is what killed it. And the crafting order system, once again, fundamentally, is not terrible. It's got room for improvement for sure. But the point is that they're making it so that everybody is going to have to engage with it. It's a big risk you take making something mandatory. Too much fun. Move the crafting orders to only be usable in the Maw. Oh Lord, can you imagine? Can you imagine? Oh no. And only usable by mages. Lord. It'd be better if the buyer's work order was a notice rather than an offer, where crafters can then reply to how much their crafting fee would be. The requester then has the opportunity to accept from a list of crafters' offers. They then have the option to wait it out until they find the one that they believe is fair. Half and half, since they have the option to provide all materials. Yeah, that's still... It's where you assign the power dynamic, right? The power dynamic with the crafting order system is very heavily in the hands of the buyer, right? And I think this is what Blizzard have deliberately tried to make that shift. As it stands currently in Shadowlands and practically every expansion that's ever existed, the power's in the hands of the person crafting and selling it, right? They get to craft it. They get to determine the price for it. Buyers have two options: pay the price or don't get the item. Two options, right? Obviously, supply and demand does its thing, though, so that crafters feel incentivized to offer their stuff as cheap as possible to get the sale. Real simple, real straightforward dynamic, right? In Dragonflight, they're trying to deliberately shift that in the other direction, which is very risky because you find me an economy, you find me a trade system that puts all of the control in the hands of the buyer. It's risky, and you know why other games don't do it? Because it tends to fail very quickly. We'll see how it plays out. But it's something that Blizzard are clearly trying this expansion. And I do agree with you that at least making it a bit fairer, you know, maybe not one single party having all of the control is a sensible way of doing it. This is why most games that go with a buy order system also supplement that with a sell order system. They make it so that people can say, this is what I want to buy and this is how much I will pay for it. But they also give people the option to say, well, this is what I craft and this is how much I'll craft it for. And where those two people meet in the middle is where goods exchange hands. It's very difficult to have just one half of that system, which is what Blizzard are trying to do with crafting orders. They're making it so that people can say, this is what I want, make it for me. And then crafters have got no way to advertise what they're willing to do from their side. They either just have to either press the button and craft it or not. I still believe there should be some integration between the auction house and the crafting orders at the very least to check materials or to straight up just buy. Yeah. I mean, my suggestion would just put like a little gold coin or something. Click the coin and it opens up the auction house for that material. Select your quality of material and then you've got the list of prices and give the option to buy the materials straight from there if needs be. That's a 10-minute job. And I'm sure it'll be a thing. In the past, it was possible to change or trade new inks for old ones, which was really good for crafting old glyphs. Is it still possible on the PTR? No idea. I've not looked. Did they change the price to the new ink? Is it maybe worth to make a supply of the old inks right now when the price for Shadowlands inks is low? No idea is the honest answer. The reason I say no idea is because I haven't looked. In every expansion we've ever had, there's been an ink trader. The ink trader has been pretty much a staple NPC that's kind of always chilling there. The reality is the glyph market is pretty much in the bin, though, you know. Since it went region-wide, the glyph market is pretty dead. There's not anywhere near the opportunity for gold making with selling on glyphs as there maybe once was for many people. But it's one of those things, right? If you've got a bit of gold lying about and you want to risk it for a biscuit, stock up, grab a bunch. You know, if you want to invest in something, maybe it's a good move. I don't know. Let's take a little look, considering we're on that note, a little bit of a look at Dragonflight milling. Licorice, who is usually kicking about somewhere, potentially in streams from time to time. Alternatively, he's usually kicking about in the Discord. Has been doing some research on milling in Dragonflight. Luckily, milling in Dragonflight is a lot more simplistic than it has been in previous, since one herb makes one type of pigment. Hockenbloom goes into shimmering pigment, Saxifrage goes into blazing pigment, Bubble Poppy goes into serene pigment, and Wraithbark goes into flourishing pigment. The process of milling herbs to get the pigments before you make the inks is much easier in Dragonflight. Far less complexity to it. One of the implications of this is that you're going to see herb prices reflected in the corresponding demand for those inks, unlike in Shadowlands where you ended up with multiple pigments from each herb and you always ended up with an abundance of luminous because it was less in demand. You'll more closely be able to select the pigments that you want And this means that herbalists will be able to bear the brunt of managing different variations in demand as the market plays out, rather than scribes having to eat the cost of unwanted pigments. This is a simplification that is definitely true, but that simplification comes with the added complexity that now we're dealing with quality. Let's not forget that there's going to be 3 different qualities of pigments. Those 3 different qualities of pigments will ultimately determine 3 different qualities of inks. So they've given myself the hiccups. They've practically given they've given a little bit of leeway on the milling aspect to add the extra level of depth to the actual crafting of the inks from the pigments. So, but luckily the numbers are pretty simple. You for the most part, you need twice as many shimmering pigment as you do any other specific herb. It's a 2-to-1 ratio for most inks. The yield is also pretty straightforward. You get 3.5 pigments for every 5 herbs. This applies regardless of skill, inspiration, multicraft, or resourcefulness. I have a feeling that might change before the game goes live. I would expect resourcefulness to play a part in milling, at least in some way, shape, or form. It'd be very odd if they restrict it from doing such. Take a guess why Death Blossom is no longer going for 1 gold each. I guess it could be that people are buying they're using the ink vendor, I guess. Please keep telling others that the glyph market is dead. Thank you. It's less lucrative than it once was, let's put it that way. Do I have any pre-expansion plans on selling high-demand items? Pre-expansion plans? Truth be told, I'm not even really playing retail right now. I'm 110% deep in Dragonflight stuff as it stands. Careful with the coin idea. Blizzard might just put a WoW token there instead, taking you straight to the shop. They could do. That'd be a bit of an April Fool's joke, I guess, though. Herb quality. In general, material quality can add a bonus to your skill of up to 25% of the recipe difficulty. In the case of milling, which has a difficulty of 250, that means that level 1 quality herbs contribute 0 skill, level 2 quality herbs contribute 31 skill, and level 3 herbs contribute 63 skill. A lot of this is going to be very, very difficult to actually process without seeing it visually in game. In the next few days or weeks, probably before the launch of Dragonflight, I'll do some content regarding milling. It's one of the things that's on my to-do list before Dragonflight goes live. My Dragonflight cheat sheet that is still very much work in progress is coming along nicely, but one of the things I did want to do for it is pretty simple. One of the things I really wanted to make sure I have done is some prospecting, some milling, and some disenchanting before the game goes live, because it's much, much easier to do it in a test environment where it doesn't cost you anything. When it goes live and you have to start trying to mill thousands of herbs to try and get any sort of decent numbers, it can get expensive quite quickly. So I want to get this up and running beforehand as much as possible. So yeah, I do understand that if you are a scribe and you are interested in this aspect of things, that it's worth taking a look at. That the big reason why people probably won't care anywhere near as much at the beginning of Dragonflight, though, is that you do not need a single herb to make Darkmoon cards. I tend to think the reason most people care heavily about milling rates at the start of an expansion is usually because of Darkmoon cards. But this time round, it probably won't be a thing, because you do not need a single herb to make a Darkmoon card this time, which will be a bit of a shock and maybe a bit of a relief to some people. Who knows? They really should have used herbs, to be honest. It's a cop-out. I think it's an incentive for people to spec in a different direction. Having the Dark Moon cards not use any herbs at all is going to mean that it will push some gatherers, some herbalists, into the direction of specking into getting more of the elementals to supply the demand that comes from making Dark Moon cards. Whereas then some of the other herbalists will just go the straight yield on herbs route. So in a way, it sort of emphasizes different spec directions in herbalism. So I think it works quite well. The problem is, though, I don't really... It's very, very hard to envisage what the prices of the elementals are going to be, because I have a feeling that they could be ridiculously expensive, because they're not just used in Dark Moon cards, they're used in every profession. I've been slowly but surely, in my cheat sheet, slowly but surely putting together like crafting cost calculators, which look crazy at the moment. But what this has taught me very quickly is just how many of the awakened materials are being used by the professions. And some of them are using a lot. And that's just on the premise of like crafting things once. When you start, you've got the armor patches through leatherworking that are using 10 awakened each in some scenarios. This is all going to start producing a huge demand, a huge strain on these specific materials. I very quickly went by the thought that we could be seeing the awakened, we could be seeing them at like 500 gold a piece quite comfortably, which would make Dark Moon cards like a 250k crafting cost, something bananas. But hey, it's something new, right? If it just works the exact same way as it worked in previous expansions, it's not fun for anybody that did it back then. So it's a new direction, a new way of dealing with it. Let's see how it works. It's going to be crazy expensive. After all, we've never had richer crafters just hoovering the auction house dry to be first to the market. It's going to be fun. Well, this is true. At only 500 gold per awakened, you're looking at 250,000 gold just to craft a single Dark Moon deck in the first few days of the expansion. If that's your cost, you can imagine what people are going to try and sell them for. The question then becomes is, will they be good enough for people to pay the price? Will those people that, invest heavily at the beginning, will they overpay? Will they pay more to make the decks than people will be willing to pay to buy the decks? That's a big risk. You'll hopefully find a couple of deep-pocketed money bags that will pay big... It would not surprise me. I reckon that in the first week of Dragonflight, I think we'll see million gold Dark Moon decks selling. I think there'll be a few people that will be willing to pay over 1 million gold for a Dark Moon trinket to begin with. Because you also have to remember, there's lots of goblins out there who are remarkably wealthy because of legendaries, which, if you've made 100, 150, 200, 300 million in Shadowlands, are you that fussed about spending 1 million gold on a Dark Moon deck? Probably not. But that's very speculative, so... I guess I'm lucky that I understand my realm and have expectations for what kind of deck buyers there are on my realm. TLDR being I won't be going into that market. I'll probably give it a crack this time, just to see what's going on, really, more than anything else. I am quite fortunate that I'm willing to spend a lot of gold just to play around and test things. I don't have the the unnecessary desire to just make bags and bags of gold anymore. I'd rather just spend my gold to have fun. On a low pop, I sold a Darkmoon deck for 400k, but I was like first to be able to list it back at Shadowlands release. I saw many people selling Darkmoon decks for 600k at the start of Shadowlands. And to sell a Darkmoon deck in the first week of Shadowlands for 600,000 gold off the back, and that's off the back of people coming out of Battle for Azeroth, where people were doing everything in their power to get 5 million gold to buy the Longboy. The reason I suspect people were willing to spend 600k on a Darkmoon deck at the beginning of Shadowlands was probably because they were trying to save up for the Longboy and just didn't make it. They just didn't get to 5 million. Maybe they got to 3.5 million. Maybe they got to 4 million and they just ran out of time or steam or both. Those people that just, had a lot of gold lying about for no apparent reason didn't really feel too put out by spending 600k on a Darkmoon card. Let's not forget at the end of BFA, we were also seeing 1 million gold plus BOEs because we had the stupid corruption BOEs. The optimal corruption BOE was a seven figure item. Could I give some advice to a fairly new player for gold making in pre-patch? Yes. Don't expect to make any gold in pre-patch. That's probably the best advice I can give. You're not going to make any meaningful amount of gold in pre-patch. I'll be one of the only content creators out there to tell you that you are not going to make any meaningful amount of gold in pre-patch. It's just not possible. It's a period in time. It's a period of time in the game where everybody is dumping their remaining stock. They're cleaning out their bags. They're cleaning out their guild banks. They're just trying to sell anything and everything for anything they can get for it. Practically meaning that now is not the time to make gold. What you want to be doing is paying attention to what's happening in Dragonflight and maybe coming up with a plan of action for what you're going to do when you get into Dragonflight. The first week or two of Dragonflight will be absolutely crazy for gatherers, for people who are willing to spend some time going out into the new zones and picking up stuff that other people want, whether it be herbs, whether it be ore, whether it be the elementals, whether it be leather, whether it be cloth, even farming in 2x4 groups for BOEs. That's maybe one step above just some basic gathering, but farming in general is the most lucrative thing you can possibly do at the start of an expansion if you're looking to make a bit of gold. But yeah, I guess the one single piece of advice is do not expect to make gold in any meaningful way in pre-patch. It's just not possible. Are the Darkmoon decks BOE? If yes, how is that fair compared to the other professions that have all of their items BOP? Yes and no. Let me show you why it's a yes and no. We'll get back to this in a second, but let me show you why it's a yes and a no. If you take a look at, I wonder if I can show you it here. Yeah, I can show you it here. Darkmoon decks come in two variations this expansion. The regular Darkmoon deck is a bind on equip trinket that's going to be item level 372. No quality, no nothing. You're not dealing with any of that shenanigans at this point. It's just a straight up 372 BOE. So it's slightly lower item level than what you get from normal raid. If you may have noticed, the other crafted gear starts at like 383 or something along those lines. It's about 10 item levels less, but it's bind on equip and it gets you the trinket, right? There's also Darkmoon deck boxes, which are then the equivalent of everything else, which a Darkmoon deck box is then your bind on pickup and is then comparable to everything else that you've seen. But you'll notice that your Darkmoon deck box has a Darkmoon deck as a reagent to make it. One of my big questions for the crafting order system is going to be, how does this integration work? If you buy a Darkmoon deck and you equip it, can you then put this forward for a recraft to recraft it into a Darkmoon deck box? They're going to have to do something to make sure that this, once you've bought one of these, that you can use it again to make a Darkmoon deck box if you so choose. Because this then becomes the item. The Darkmoon deck box is the one that you can potentially push it all the way up to item level 418. Yeah, so there's two variations of your Darkmoon deck, basically. The basic bind on equip deck, and then there's the Darkmoon deck box, which is the one you're going to upgrade and the one you're going to progress with. Let's get back to this then. Where did we get to this? I think we were getting towards the end of some milling. Okay, we had a Dragonflight skinning guide. Oh, buddy old Pound Kachak has been working on doing some gathering videos by the looks of things. I've been prodding him and poking him to start releasing some of these videos, because the sooner he starts releasing these, maybe the sooner he'll, build his audience on YouTube, and it means that when he does post videos at the launch, he'll do much better for himself. He's put together a little bit of a skinning guide for Dragonflight, the complete Dragonflight skinning guide. I've watched a bit of this. I've not watched it all the way through, though. One simple reason is that I don't farm. I don't particularly care. But it's going to be a very, very lucrative way to make some gold at the beginning of the expansion. Like we just mentioned, gathering herbs, gathering ore, doing some skinning, collecting some cloth, farming for BOEs, collecting the elementals. These are all going to be very lucrative ways for people to make some gold. You invest your time to go and get something that somebody else wants. Super duper mega way to make a bit of gold. I'd highly recommend you check this one out. What's his name on YouTube? I think it's just Kachak. I'm quite sure. But yeah, I've been pushing him to actually publish a few more of his videos. He's clearly working on them behind the scenes, so go check him out, drop him a sub. Is it worth to have somebody else use their metal to craft my tools to save my metal? If yes, what's the advantage of keeping my metal? Also known as, what can I craft with it? Well, Artisan's metal is used in a bunch of different things. The main thing it is used for is recrafting. Every time you go to recraft something, it charges you Artisan's metal. Obviously, you've already noticed that the profession tools are the big hoover up of Artisan's metal. It becomes a choice, right? It's kind of up to you. If you want to, it's up to you. Let's not forget that if you are looking to buy 225 of somebody else's Artisan's metal, expect to pay a pretty penny for that luxury. If you see value in, that's, I can't really answer that question because it's entirely up to you. Other than it's primarily used for the profession tools, it's used in recrafting. There is also, I guess it's probably worth at this point pointing out the fact that you can, once you build your reputation with the Artisans Consortium, their currency is Artisan's metal. So if you try to buy anything from the Quartermaster for this faction, you'll require Artisan's metal. So you might, dependent on what profession you are, you might need to save some of this up to buy some recipes. At certain break points, at certain reputation levels, you can buy these books that give you a boost to your knowledge, which are seemingly very worthwhile getting. So you probably want 300, 400, 500, 600 artisans metal to buy these books as soon as they become available. Yeah, that's how you choose to spend your currency is kind of up to you. But let me put it this way: I'll spend stupid money, and I mean absolutely stupid money, to buy artisans metal off somebody else. I will be one of the people that will be putting in profession tool work orders. I'm a jewel crafter and a leather worker on my main character. My leatherworking tool, I believe, if I remember correctly, is made by a blacksmith. I think. Oh, you have to do it this way. Oh, that's not very intuitive. Kazgarite leatherworker's knife. Yeah, this is made by blacksmiths. I will absolutely 100% be putting a monstrously large commission in here so that I don't have to spend 300 of my artisan's metal, if I'm honest. But like I said, that's up to you. That's up to you how you approach it. Okay, so where we get from here? Couple of questions. Of the 3 specializations for skinning, tanning, harvesting, and bait crafter, which do you think will be your first focus when Dragonflight releases? The one that makes sense to me is probably bait crafting. But this is only on the premise that bait crafting gives you an increased source of the rousing and the awakened essences. If you're purely after more leather, then tanning and harvesting works equally well. Please define a monstrously large commission. I'll easily, more than happily, drop 1 million gold to get my 3 profession items paid for. Easily. But what I will pay doesn't matter, right? I'll drop 1 million gold on them because I can do that. Most people won't be able to. That's like asking somebody, like, how much would you spend on a car? Somebody will buy a Ferrari because they want a Ferrari, and they can buy a Ferrari. Is there any reason to buy a Ferrari over a Ford Fiesta? Probably not, but that's where the value proposition comes into play. Goblins want profession tools as badly as raiders want those Darkmoon decks? Probably. A wild Zanzaful appears. Welcome in, my man. What's going on here? Somebody gift Zanzaful a sub, for Christ's sake. Look at his poor little name there. No icons next to it. Shocking. There's going to be 100% will be people that will see 300k for metal and be like, I'll take it. Oh, you better believe. You better believe. Somebody will see that offer come in. They'll be like, oh shit, oh wow, I can press this button and make 300k. Boom! Button pressed. There'll be no thoughts. No thoughts. So people will press that button quicker than you will blink. An entire token's worth of gold for a few artisan metal that they got from first craft bonuses that they don't think is worth anything yet because they don't know how the system works. Boom! Button pressed. How, like, take all of my monies. For goblins, would you say it's better to keep your own metal, I guess? It depends. I'm going to be rocking 2 crafting professions, which means my demand for artisan's metal is going to be ludicrous. I'm going to need so much artisan's metal to be able to buy both these book sets for both professions, let's not forget. So 100, 200, 300, 600 times 2, because 2 professions. So 1,200 artisans metal is going to be dedicated just to buying these knowledge books. Then if I'm looking at like 200 to 300 artisans metal for each of the profession tools, there's 6 of those. That could be another 1,500 artisans metal. The reality is, for me, running 2 crafting professions is, if I want to be the best, I will not have enough artisans metal to do everything I want to do with it. So I will then spend the big bucks to buy it from somebody else that doesn't value it as highly as I do. And, you know, that's the whole point of it. Doing all the professions this expansion seems almost impossible. It's not going to be easy. It's going to be pretty time consuming. You're going to be grinding a lot of reputation. How do you get artisans metal outside of first time craft bonuses? Well, it's because of the reason you get it for first time craft bonuses. Your first time craft bonus actually rewards you a knowledge point. You gain 1 knowledge every time you craft something for the first time. You get 5 artisans metal every time you earn a knowledge point. So one thing happens because of the other. So every time you earn a knowledge point in any way, shape or form, 5 artisans metal. So your first time craft bonus actually is giving you the knowledge point. But because you gain a knowledge point, you also gain 5 artisans metal. What were those knowledge books for again? Well, the knowledge books were simply just to give you more knowledge. In one fail swoop, will give you 15, for herbalism, 100 artisans metal. It's a one-time purchase. Unique, bind on pickup, 100 artisans metal, 15 knowledge. As you gain more reputation with the Artisans Consortium, you'll then unlock the same book again, but this time it's going to cost you 200. The third time you buy it, it's going to cost you 300. Now, obviously, not everybody will see value in buying all 3 of these. Some people won't see value in buying any of these. But if you're on the hunt for as much knowledge for your professions as fast as possible, it's the crafters min-maxing. Crafters doing degenerate things. Artisans metals bind on pickup and you won't lose it if you forget a profession, right? Yes, correct, yeah. Yes. Where did it go? Here we go. Where did we get to? It's great to see these kind of guides coming out. The fact that there are specializations to gather whilst mounted is going to make things very interesting for those that want to use characters on other than a druid for gathering. I don't think that was even mentioned previously, but yes, you can spec into being able to gather whilst on your dragon form, which will be nice. This is also going to be the first time that we have commodities going region-wide at an expansion launch, and so it's going to be very interesting to see how quickly prices drop and fluctuate and what the demand is for them. There's a kiss-curse effect going on here. I'm obviously one of the big advocates for telling people that farming is going to be very lucrative in the first couple of weeks of an expansion, because it is. But what I would also point out is that window of opportunity is quite slim. Because of the region-wide auction house, materials are going to plummet in price pretty quickly, I feel. Aided by the issue of that there is no single system for crafters that's going to consume huge quantities of materials. To do the comparison to what we've had in Shadowlands we saw really, really, really lucrative farming for a long time. For most of the expansion, up until literally only a few weeks ago, for most of the expansion, you could pretty much make about 30,000 gold an hour without too much difficulty at nearly any point in the expansion. This was because farming is inherently boring. Most people don't want to do it. They'll only do it as and when the price is right. added on to the fact that Shadowlands Legendaries absorbed so many materials, it was ridiculous. The demand by crafters for materials in Shadowlands was bonkers crazy. This kept the farming market afloat for the entire expansion. Dragonflight is going to be a lot like BFA in regards to materials will start at a high price, but they'll dip very quickly because there's not going to be that long tail permanent demand for huge quantities of materials. And actually, the crafting order system only makes this problem worse, right? It only makes it worse because now, come Dragonflight, crafters are not going to be buying and holding huge stockpiles of materials. Because guess what? They don't need to anymore. They don't need to hold huge stockpiles of materials because in many cases, an order will come in and it will have provided the materials, right? There's no reason for a crafter to hold huge inventories of materials unless they're churning out PvP gear or something that goes on the auction house. There's nowhere near the demand for materials in Dragonflight that there was in Shadowlands. So prices will dip very, very fast. Region-wide commodities for launch is going to be wild. The demand is going to be crazy. So even at lower prices, they'll fly off the shelves for everybody. This is going to be that's a good counter way to look at it. That your turnover, your speed in selling stuff. If you go out and you do an hour's worth of farming, it won't necessarily need you to put it on the auction house, leave it overnight, come back to hopefully a mailbox full of gold. You'll put it on the auction house, and within 3 minutes, it'll have all sold. There's no question about it. The speed in which your materials will sell. If you go out and farm for an hour, you'll sell an hour's worth of stuff in 3 minutes flat. No problems whatsoever. Because you'll put them on the auction house, and it only takes one person across the entire region to buy them, and boom, you've sold all of yours in one go. Job done. Your turnover is going to be ludicrous. Can't wait to snipe and bait too. Scumbag move, but yeah, it will happen for sure. It will happen for sure. I will absolutely have a sniper running at all times for people that do post things significantly undervalued. Excited for all the rage whispers. Oh, Lord. Since I'm not sure if it would be an abuse of the system, etc., I wrote you a PM on Discord. Okay. I maybe won't necessarily. Hang on. You've piqued my interest now. What's this? Maybe I shouldn't read it out loud to begin with. Oh, profession shuffling. If you pick up a profession, get your first time craft bonuses work like quests. You can only complete them once. So if you level up leatherworking and you get your first time craft bonuses and then you drop leatherworking, you can take leatherworking again, but you then won't get first time craft bonuses again. But if you level up leatherworking and then drop it and then level up blacksmithing, you'll get your first time craft bonus for every craft in blacksmithing. Then you drop blacksmithing. Then you take inscription and you do the same again. You can shuffle and rotate your professions in that way. But here's the big but. That is going to be ludicrously expensive to do. Super duper mega expensive to do. Because if you are going to that level of degree to gain as much artisan's metal as you can possibly get your hands on, the reason you're doing that is because you want to also be super effective with your crafting professions. Ultimately meaning you are going to have to do that in the first week of the expansion at the very same time as the materials all at their absolute highest price. So once again, it's a value proposition, right? Instead of doing that, I would rather just pay somebody a buttload of gold to craft me my profession tool using their artisan's metal. Simple. I would much rather do that. Not only for the fact that I don't want to drop my professions, because I've had them for over a decade, and there's patterns on there that aren't even in the game anymore. There's no way I'm dropping my professions, not for anything. I'm going disenchanting and the blacksmithing
wallet?
spec into
just glad to
shields
see me.
on my blood elf prop
Both, I
paladin,
hope.
hoping the disenchanting can fuel the blacksmithing. Maybe, possibly, presumably. No reason to believe it wouldn't do. Pat Juro, thank you very much for the prime. Appreciate it. Welcome in. Welcome, welcome. How do you get metal if you finish all of your first time crafts? Like I mentioned earlier, you gain the reason is when your first time craft gives you a knowledge point. It doesn't give you artisan's metal. The first time you craft anything, it gives you a knowledge point. The rule is every time you gain a knowledge point, you gain 5 artisan's metal. So one thing happens because of the other. You get the first time craft bonus, also gives you 5 artisan's metal, but it does that because it gives you a knowledge point, if that makes sense. If you look at the tooltip for the artisan's metal, a Mystery of the Dragon Isles, this reagent coalesces, is made, each time you gain more profession knowledge. It has a myriad of uses, including recrafting Dragon Isles crafted equipment. Oi, oi, look who we have here. Hey, we got friends on the beta. Friends on the beta. Is that Mr. Streamer? Did you just assume my gender in 2022? Shocking performance. The potential for shuffles with these revamped professions has got to be pretty huge with all the quality tiers. I'm not too sure. I've not looked into things like shuffle. I mean, there probably will be. There absolutely probably will be. Is it the return of Womantheus? Oh yeah, I forgot we had that filter for a while. I had to turn that off. It was using far too much CPU. My computer's not powerful enough to have those things running. When we upgrade to a new PC, then we can maybe turn those things back on again. Do I keep my knowledge points? What if I spec into blacksmithing tools and then relearn blacksmithing? Would I still have, let's say, the 50 knowledge points, or do I start at 0 again? Yeah, once you've gained a knowledge point, you will always keep that knowledge point. If you spend that knowledge point, it will also always be spent where you spend it, if that makes sense. There's no undo on knowledge points currently. And I really, really, really do feel that they need to do something to let people respec their knowledge points. Even if it's on a very long duration cooldown, or even if it's very costly. It's difficult because when you start putting a cost against it, some people are richer than others. I would suggest that if they were to do a profession respec, it be on like a 30-day cooldown or something. Any less than that, and you start chipping away at the benefit of specializing in the first place. You know, if you spec into a profession in a certain direction in the first month of the expansion, let's say you spec heavily into Darkmoon cards at the beginning, but then the Darkmoon sort of, bubble pops, and you decide that, well, actually, maybe now I want to switch to doing something else. If you use your respec then, you could respec into doing something else. But then that would mean that it's going to be at least a month before you could switch back to be, to be good at making Darkmoon cards again or something. The problem is even if you put a long-ass timer, a long-ass cooldown on doing it, it still means that everybody gets one free respec. And that can still be quite a powerful thing. at a period of time where specializing is at its most lucrative. So I'm quite sure that's something that Blizzard are discussing behind closed doors. I've not seen many people really push for it, though. This is the thing. This is one of the things that there's not much feedback being given to the devs, which is why they're kind of just doing their own thing. We are such a small little corner of the game compared to like Raiding or Mythic Plus or something, that our voice is not very loud. To continue on then, just for the Wowhead report for the week, I should shine a little bit of a spotlight on the fact that Samadan has made a return to his Let's Play series. He has this long-running Let's Play series where he has 3 characters. I think these 3 characters might be on his NA account. I'm not entirely sure. But he takes gold making from a nice entry-level perspective. For the most part, he's got 3 characters. One that does all of his selling, one that does a bit of farming, one that does a bit of crafting. You know, sort of a jack-of-all-trades setup. And he seems to be back up and running again with his Let's Play series on his YouTube channel. So if you haven't, make sure you go check him out. The voice may not be very loud, but according to all the gold held by the goblins, it probably should. Same as shareholders in a company. You're probably not far wrong, actually. The Samadan, Stabadan, and Shadowdan. Oh, okay, there we go. There is NA characters. Makes sense. Makes sense. But that was I mean, it took us a while to get through it, but that was the little economy report for the week. Once again, big shout out to Samadan for putting this report together. It comes out most Sundays. I tend to cover it in a bit of detail on a Monday. Let's people have told me I need to look at the comments this week. There's only 12 comments. They can't be that bad, right? They cannot be that bad. Oh god, the very first word of the very first comment has my name in it. Oh, that's not a good start, is it? Edited twice as well. Okay. Manthus seems to be the only one to test this work order system right now. I've started to see people pay more attention to it, but it's clear, it's super clear to me that most people don't care. Generally speaking, most people don't care. You know, if there's a big significant change to raiding or Mythic Plus or PvP, then it's going to get a spotlight shined on it super fast. We've started to see a few other people pay attention to it. I know that Mr. GM is going to come out with a video about it in the next day or two. He's probably working on it now. Let's not muck about. I know Soul has done a video about it. I've not seen a sniff from Bellula, but Bellula doesn't even play the game. He waits for his writers to, you know, write a script for him. I think yeah, there's a few people that have talked about it, but not a lot. Not a lot. I'm sure if you actually Kalani said it was great. Well, Kalani had a little bit of a look at it for sure. Although, you know, he looked at it at a very surface level. No shade on Kalani at all, but the gold making is not his speciality. His content is deliberately very, very positive, based in positivity. I don't think he's barely ever said a negative word towards anything that's ever come out. Ghostwriter? Oh, I mean, it's not... Bellula doesn't have ghostwriters. Bellula doesn't have ghostwriters. No. Ghostwriter entails the fact he tries to keep it a secret. He quite clearly, quite openly has people that writes his scripts for him. Bellula's too busy telling us what the next expansion will be based on a random book in Dalaran. Is he? I don't have time to watch all his videos, unfortunately, but I keep my eyes on what's going on roughly, but 2022 and they've got people waiting up to 48 hours to craft for a craft requisition to finish. Even New World tells you where the materials come from in the tooltip. Oh dear. Oh dear. 30 work orders per character or per account. By my testing so far, it's per character. You can do 30 public work orders a day from a crafting perspective. Likely per character, though I can see this being botted to hell and back. People have been super quick to jump on the bot hype train. The entire system is so unfriendly to bots, it's not even funny. I'm usually okay with different viewpoints. However, Mantheus's wasn't even tolerable the first time, so I'd rather just wait. Still, at least there are other guides. I'm not too sure about the skinning guide, though. Aw, Scary Fox. What did I ever do? What did I ever do? Looking at what was in the video, I'd agree with a lot that was commented on. I haven't been able to get onto the beta, so I haven't been able to test this myself, although the crafting professions was something I was interested in right from the start. And which aspects of the reported design triggered significant concerns regarding. So from the video, I mean, I am assuming this was one of my videos about the work orders. The big thing I noticed regarding the failure situation is the lack of a feedback loop. Anybody who has professionally designed systems will tell you that it is critical that there is a feedback loop for all of the control characteristics of a system if one wishes to manage that system. Yeah, nobody writes like this unless you're some sort of developer. Oh, Lord. Oh, no, you found my Wowhead account? What did I ever do? With regards to the crafting and the quality of goods, there should be the ability to build hypothetical items where you can put what if quality of items into the system against particular items and see what potential range the results may cover. This is not too bad of a suggestion. I just know full well that the implementation of this would be an absolute living nightmare. A form of like crafting calculator would make sense. The problem is that the given output depends on the input of the crafter. Making this hypothetical, crafting calculator thing not really feasible from a buyer perspective, because you don't strictly know what the skill level is of the crafter that's going to make that item. This is half of the issue, right? That you're looking to gain the expertise of the crafter to make something at higher quality. You can't simply say, right, if I give you quality 3 Hockenbloom, then you're going to make me quality 2. It doesn't work like that. It's not quite as black and white. A better skilled crafter will be able to make something of higher quality using the same materials as a lower quality. It's not quite as straightforward as that. But it's a good. The suggestion is grounded well. It makes a lot of sense to allow somebody to sort of customize and say, right, well, if I put this on it, what does it do? If I put this on it, what does it do? It's just going to be very difficult to deal with that. There are probably more elegant ways that this can be produced. It won't be long before an add-on comes out and basically automates it to tell you the profit time. True. But this is a cancerous way of looking at it. And the issue is that it's clear that in the past that Blizzard has built systems knowing that this is the case. There should nothing should ever be designed so that it won't be fully functional until an add-on comes along and does it for you, sort of thing. That doesn't make this statement false. It just makes it a very toxic way of looking at things. You really shouldn't be relying on add-ons. The core game should be sufficient enough to stand on its own 2 feet. But yes, you are entirely right. And for reference, my cheat sheet is exactly doing that. Right? My cheat sheet is exactly designed for this purpose. My my Dragonflight cheat sheet will be what will tell you the crafting cost of everything, because I don't believe an add-on will come along and do it very quickly. I don't even think that TSM is going to be able to provide much information for you regarding this, because they just do not have the time to fix their add-on before it goes live. What I do have, though, is the ability to put it all in a spreadsheet and give you the numbers. So, hit that sub button. Maybe check out Patreon. You know, it's available for channel supporters. It's still broken at the moment and it's still not complete, but that's about as close to a shameless plug as I'm going to get today. Not even interested in profit/time, although it is a valid comment. The most significant concern I have with the system is the lack of visibility of the impact of quality and crafting on the end results. Yeah, like I said, this is a very difficult thing to portray to the buyer, because the quality of the end result craft is entirely dependent on the person who crafts it. There's no, you know, you can provide the same materials to 3 different crafters, of which, because of their expertise in their profession, because of the skill points they put in their profession, all 3 of those crafters might make something at a completely different quality, even though you gave them the same resources. That's kind of the point of the new profession system. The point is that the more skilled you are and the more you specialize into doing something, the better you're able to do it compared to everybody else. Perfect little cheat sheet promo slip in there. Hey, you got to try, right? Oh my god, a wall of text. The true power of the system is going to be for those that market themselves effectively on their server and are close to several guilds fulfilling orders. In its current implementation, yes. While I think you may be correct with the current interface, I did not get the impression that this was the intent of Blizzard bringing in the new crafting process. Think of it this way, and I think this is kind of what Blizzard was aiming for. If you want to get a simple horseshoe or a knife made, you take it to any old blacksmith to get it made. But if you want an exquisitely balanced Damascus dagger made to suit a king, you go to a master craftsman with years of experience and reputation to match. The common knife's price is set by market forces, where commonality and availability provide only a small margin of profit. The prize dagger's price is set by the master craftsman and reflects not just the material costs, but also their reputation and the years of experience. Yeah, this is kind of the mindset, I think, for the crafting professions themselves. Very much so. I tend to feel that this is definitely what they tried to go for with the professions in the crafting. And I think they have. I think they've done a remarkably good job of doing that. Like I said, the fact that you could give the same materials to 3 different crafters, and based upon their expertise, they'd produce 3 different quality of items. Obviously, the higher the quality is going to be more sought after. I think they've done a really good job of that. The problem is that's not reflected very well through the crafting order system. That's where I think there's definitely room for improvement for sure. From what I'm seeing at the moment, the master craftsman aspect can only be done through personal orders, which will mean that all aspects of crafting will have to be discussed with clientele outside of the crafting interface before the order is actually placed. This person's like literally read my mind. Yeah, I tend to feel that without any form of communication beforehand, public orders are pretty dead on arrival. A Google Sheet integration patch for 10.1. Could you imagine? Technically, there are ways and means to be able to do it, but it requires excessive knowledge of Python scripts and customizing Lua files and doing all sorts of silly things. So it's not happening, at least not for me anyway. Do you think we could use personal orders to try and use inspiration procs on crafts to get people otherwise unobtainable gear? No, because if you craft something, it's bind on pickup. If you craft it, you can't then do anything with it. Unfortunately, the crafting order system does really kill a lot of the excitement about inspiration and resourcefulness and multi-craft. Because at least the way that it stands right now, none of those stats have any effect. Because for crafting orders to work specifically, you have to be able to guarantee a certain craft of item before you can press the button. For recrafts, feasible for recrafts, maybe. Possibly. Oh no, not again. What's the oh no, not again? Heart of Azimuloth? Look, it's even got the same icon. That's quite funny. Where did that come from? That's quite funny. I like that. The icon, the panic. Oh, that tickled me. Is it a campaign quest? Nice. So for 5% of the players, they're going to get super rich whilst they ruin it for everybody else. So they can struggle. So glad they wasted countless hours working on this. Dumb comment. I thought work orders would be through the auction house. Was surprised to find it wasn't. I agree this will be inconvenient, but I think it's still better for guild crafters than maintaining external spreadsheets of items and materials. What do you mean external spreadsheets of items and materials? What do you mean? Nobody's crazy enough to do that, surely. Nobody's crazy enough to do that. I predict an increase in WoW token base price, kind of like Legion. No. No. Token price is already dipping. It's already dipping. That's a good point, actually. What is the token price? 320. Cheapest it's been for a long time. It dipped as low as 315 at some point in the last 48 hours. This is due to more people subscribing to the game. People are clearly buying tokens now. Because if they buy a token now, they get 320,000 gold for it. If they buy a token once Dragonflight goes live, there'll be lots of people buying tokens, trying to cash them in for gold. And so the amount of gold you'll get each time will go down. This number's, you know, slowly but surely decreasing day by day. And will probably continue to do so. I'm quite sure by the time Dragonflight goes live, we'll have hit 300k again in the EU. And then it'll plummet very quickly. Hopefully to the 175, 200,000 gold range. Alrighty. I think though, boys and girls, I might leave that there for today. We've had a good conversation, I feel, about work orders. I think I've at least clarified in my own mind how I think I would like to see the system improved. Can't wait for 150k tokens. Oh, you and me both. Have you played EVE Online, crafting in the auction house? I'm on a completely another level there. I've not played EVE for that exact reason. I don't need EVE to consume my life, because I know it would. What will you focus on for jewel crafting at the start? Gems, rings, or is it a secret? Honestly, I don't really know. I haven't really put together like a strategy or a plan of action for Dragonflight yet. Truth be told, I wanted to wait until we saw the crafting order system. Because this will have a big play on what I plan to do. Because truth be told, the crafting order system isn't going to be where the gold will be made. You'll still make the lion's share of your gold will still come from selling things on the auction house. And I'm very, very quickly leaning in the direction of just hardcore crafting and selling materials. Honestly, because that's where the profit's going to be made. I mean, from day one, you know, you've got the disadvantage with the crafting order system that it's realm specific. which means the only customers you have available to you are the ones that are also on your realm. Anything that's on the see, most people look at the regional auction house and think, oh my god, there's so much competition that prices will dip. I don't look at it from a competition aspect. I look at it from, if I'm selling something on the region auction house, I have every single player in the EU as a potential customer. My challenge then becomes to sell them as many things as I possibly can at a profit, and then I win. The big wins will happen on the auction house still. This crafting order system is just a nice bit of fluff to go alongside crafting, and a way for raiders to not have to engage with a NPC to get their upgrade. So I've not totally decided. Whilst I think it could be super cool to be like that absolutely best gear crafter, or, you know, the dude that makes the best two-handed weapons or something, there's an element of prestige that comes with that. But is it going to be good for making gold? Probably not. More importantly, it's also going to come with an aggressive rep grind on multiple characters that I'm not totally sure I want to be doing. I'll do the rep grind on my main character, because I do everything on my main character, but whether I choose to do that on alts, probably not. But we'll see. I've not decided. We'll see. But anyway, I'm going to leave it there for today, boys and girls. Thank you all for joining. I hope you enjoyed. What day is it today? It's Tuesday. Tuesday is probably won't be streaming tomorrow. I've got into a little bit of a habit of using Tuesday as a day to get some video content sorted. Taking Tuesday means I can usually get a few videos done for the rest of the upcoming week, meaning hopefully it provides more time for streaming in the latter parts of the week. So we'll be back on Wednesday. We'll be back on Wednesday as far as the stream's concerned. So if you haven't already, hit that follow button, consider subscribing. And yeah, have yourselves a good day, boys and girls. I'll catch you all next time. Peace. Is Zanzaful streaming, is he? Should we raid Zan? Is he live? He's live. Let's throw you all Zanzaful's way. Raid channel. Pick a channel to raid. Zan. Start raid. See you later, boys and girls.